Hello, hello, hello. Good morning and welcome. You are on the mountain with Rick, and it is time for New Game Tuesday. But first, coffee. Ah, yeah. That's good right there. That's good. Yep. Hello, hello. What is good, Kevin? I guess that joining the chat is not good. I don't know. Maybe he joined us on the wrong device.
Yo.
Yo.
Sorry about that. I was I was doing the Novo Pangea pack break, and I think I was still connected to there. How are you?
I'm wishing that our other guest was here, but other than that, I'm tired as fuck. But other than that, I'm great.
When was he supposed to be here?
22 minutes ago.
Oh. Well, hopefully he arrived. Oh, I need to mute that. Man, well, if ever for some reason he can't make it, there is something I would love to.
What's that?
And that is unbox a box of Zendikar Rising draft boosters with you.
Oh, that's not really new game content, but I suppose I'm not opposed to it.
Well, it is new game for me. But no, hopefully he arrives shortly. Oh, the cup arrived today, by the way.
The what did?
The cup.
Oh, cool.
It is a thing of exquisite beauty. I will need to photograph it for you.
I'm glad. I honestly didn't even know that you had actually ordered it.
They didn't send you your earnings?
Let me. I might have to go and like manually claim it or something.
That'd be a massive pain in the tits. Be like probably $4 you're gonna receive for it or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, like I was surprised I don't have an email from like Streamlabs like your merch store made a sale.
Aren't Streamlabs like the most horrific of the things I've heard?
I don't know. I was actually enjoying their tools a lot better than OBS, but I switched over to OBS because Splinterlands TV.
Someone had told me, and I can't say if this is true or not, but I was told that Streamlabs had basically stolen all of their tools from other devs and then monetized.
Oh, yeah, no, I've definitely heard that. I have no idea as far as the veracity of it, but I can definitely say 100% that its tools and layouts and whatnot are more intuitive than
yeah. No, I agree.
OBS.
I've streamed through it before, yeah. That's totally correct. Man, I'm dealing with insurance adjusters again, and man, these people are the scum of the earth. Well, they're
almost
not
as bad as politicians.
They want to settle a like $1,300 sofa bed at $400. I'm like, eat a bag of dicks. I did not write that, but that's how I feel.
I was doing some thinking today, and I came up with an idea.
What's that?
I am going to run for president.
Okay.
As a Republican.
Okay.
On the running notion that Trump was amazing, was the greatest president ever, and was all things to all people like he claims to be. And the election was actually stolen from him, and he has been the rightful president this entire time while Biden has been running things. And because of that, his term limit is over, and he is not actually eligible to win in 2024.
I like it. I like that a lot.
I know, right?
You're going to run into the not a natural born citizen part.
Yeah, I know. But in all honesty, Trump is obviously not a natural born citizen of this earth, so there has to be a way around it.
I'm sure we can find it.
I mean, there is no way that any actual human being is that completely terrible, right?
It would be highly unlikely. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I think we might be onto something here.
I think that you could most certainly give that the old college try. I don't know how far you would get in the primary process.
Oh, and I think actually, like, I did a lot of thinking about it, and I've like, if I had to point my finger at one thing that we could change to actually fix the system, I think the elimination of primaries might be it.
Then how would candidates be chosen?
You vote for your candidate on election day.
How does that work with the electoral? Well, I mean, I'm all for the abolition of the electoral college, but so that's what you're implying as well.
Yeah, that would be, ideally would go arm in arm with it, but
I don't think
not, that would be like the second thing that I would say would need, change the electoral college. Yeah, but now.
Oh, I mean, otherwise. Yeah, I see what you
mean. But yeah, if it's the party's candidate that is the problem. That is what is forcing the extremifying of the base.
Oh yeah.
If the party did not have a candidate and was instead just a group of like-minded individuals,
I mean, political parties themselves are arguably part
problems, yes, but
they promote like this weird tribalism, but they also educate theoretically, but they're not really fulfilling that educational function nowadays.
No, and also what, to me, the good part of the party system is the quick identifying of the typical ideologies that tend to go with each other.
Yeah.
That
those
sort of like naming convention is really all that the party should actually be.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
But as far as like, I don't think it would be possible at this point to actually abolish the parties. Like,
well, no, they're private-ish organizations.
Exactly. The problem is the fact that the parties have a candidate, and therefore the first thing you have to do is appease to the party.
Mm-hmm.
And how about you run on your fucking ideals? Run on policy. Imagine that shit.
Imagine all the people
living in the world.
Yeah, not being rude. What am I doing?
I don't fucking know what you're doing.
I never know.
I don't even know what I'm doing.
What are any of us?
Actually, I do know what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to find a meme format.
Oh. That's... Memes are good. We value memes. For Matt Clark?
For Matt Clark?
You said for Matt?
No, I said I'm looking for memes.
Oh, I thought you said you were looking for a meme for Matt.
No, looking for a meme format.
Oh, that's a homonym, sir. So you can understand my confusion.
Uh, on the one hand, yes. On the other hand, absolutely no.
Yeah, because do you know Matt Clark that well?
I know of Matt Clark.
Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't be looking for a meme for Matt Clark.
No.
Not unless
The more logical Matt to go to for that instance would be Yabba Matt.
Oh, yes.
But no, not that either, because it's a meme format. Like that would be the logical jump to make. Is that's what I was talking about.
Are you implying that I'm capable of logic?
I no, I guess not.
Wait, did they shift this so that there's a no result possible? Sorry, I need to figure something out real quick. 85, 91, 5, 7, 5, 99, 5, 100. What?
Oh, this one's great.
Let me come see stream. I have a. Oh, that is great.
Hello, Tyler.
Hey, Rick, I am so sorry, dude. I just saw your message.
It's all good, my friend. As some would say, fuck it. We're doing it live.
Guys, please excuse me. I am so sorry. I got the time wrong. Oh, man, I'm so embarrassed. But hey, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We are happy to have you. Welcome, welcome. And ain't no thing but a chicken wang.
Nice to
Glad
meet
that
you.
you could make it and we didn't get totally crushed and end up burning a night. But definitely glad to hear more. Really, I don't know all that much about your project, but I do remember seeing the very catchy catchphrase, free to play to earn. Did I get that right?
You did. That's awesome. I'm excited to chat a little bit more about that. So, yeah, but well, I'll let you ask your question. So, but absolutely, you got it right.
Really, I don't even have enough information to have good questions aside from making sure that I got that right. I'm just popping out a little tweet to let people know that you're here. Talking to Tyler from at Nifty.
I'll go ahead and retweet that on the Nifty Arcade account.
Work fingers.
No worries.
Alrighty, sent out and stoked. All right, do we have a website, white paper, anything? What do you want me to be showing on stream while we're talking about this?
So I don't have anything to show quite yet. So this is so to talk a little bit about what's going to happen is Nifty Arcade is partnering with a project that is going to be launching within the next few months. And what's going to happen is this is going to be a mobile game, and the site, it's going to be downloadable on mobile. And what will happen is as soon as we launch it on mobile, we'll throw it on the Nifty Arcade website. But that's where people will be able to kind of find some information about it.
Alrighty, do we have any blurbs or anything out? Like, is there anywhere that I can send people to that want to know more at all?
Not yet, not yet. I'm actually making videos about it starting Friday, so we'll have some stuff out, but it's not a lot of documentation out there quite yet. But I'd love to kind of do a breakdown for everybody, and then I'll have everybody kind of follow the journey. But what's going to happen is it's going to be a very simple turn-based strategy hyper-casual game. So the hyper-casual genre, if people are familiar with Clash of Clans or Angry Birds or any of those games where the core game loop is that you come in and you can kind of play for a little bit and then you can jump out and come back in at any time and have the progress that you had. That's considered either a hyper casual or a hybrid casual. So this is going to be a very simple hyper/hybrid casual strategy turn-based game where you'll enter into little matches, you'll fight people. And where it gets really exciting is what I talk about with this concept of free to play to earn. So the way that works is I have this conviction, and I tell anyone and everyone about this, about how to actually build a sustainable economy that includes in-game item ownership. And we have to take a little tangent in order to understand why in-game item ownership really changes the narrative. And again, hey Rick, if you have any questions, just feel free to interrupt me, because I'll just kind of go through my little spiel, and then if you want to stop and clarify something, please feel free. So in order to kind of understand why in-game item ownership changes the name of the game, we have to look at kind of what's happened in the in the Web3 gaming space, and then what's happened in Web2 gaming. So when you introduce in-game item ownership, you are creating what's called an open economy. So when you say, hey, people can now trade items within this game ecosystem that I've created, it makes it so that you have now opened up your economy to the world, and you've opened it up in a way that people are going to start trying to exploit it, and people are going to try to profit as much as they can from an open loop economy. And what that means is it means that it's a lot more difficult to balance the economy. Open loop economies are much more difficult to balance than any kind of closed system. And that's because of the fact that there's real money involved, right? And so if you look at the tenets of a sustainable economy in a virtual world, there are three core foundational pillars that hold up what we call a sustainable economy. Number one is currency stability. So a currency has to be stable. And this is actually one of the big problems that we've seen in Web3 games all over the place, is currency stability is a huge issue. You know, I love a ton of projects out there, but there has still yet to be one project that can actually get a currency to be stable. So right. Let's define currency stability a little bit. And again, guys, please jump in if you want to. So let's define what currency stability actually means. So imagine living in the US and the dollar were jumping to all-time highs one day and then falling to all-time lows the next day. Nobody would hold the dollar to spend it. Everybody would either be trying to sell it at its all-time high, and they would be trying to offload it, when it was going down because of the volatility. Nobody would hold it, and it wouldn't actually be a currency. A currency is supposed to fulfill three criteria. A stable currency is supposed to be a medium of account, which means that I know how much one thing costs because it's denominated in this currency. We can go to the store and we can buy food, we can buy clothes, because the price of those things are denominated in a stable trading mechanism that we all understand. Because before currency, you would be trading things. You're like, okay, I've got this cow, but how many bushels of wheat is this cow worth? Okay, let's try to figure this out. But a medium of account means that everybody has a benchmark from which they can establish the value of their item. So that's a primary principle of what a currency is supposed to be, as a medium of account. And then number two is is a store of value. You're supposed to be able to keep the currency and accumulate the currency so that you are storing up more and more value. Just like you earn your paycheck and you save it in the bank account, it's supposed to store value for you until you can expend it on something. And the problem with volatile currencies is people get rid of them. If the currency is crashing, people are getting rid of them, and it's not a store of value. And then number 3 is it's supposed to be non-volatile, which means that obviously it shouldn't be skyrocketing up and shooting down. And that's the problem with all of these Web3 gaming ecosystems, is none of them have achieved. Splinterlands is doing something really interesting, and I'm really excited to keep an eye on how they achieve sustainability in their economy if they can do so. But the core issue is that no game has managed to fulfill the 3 criteria of a stable currency yet. And that's because of the fact that you're introducing a token with very little stability into an open loop environment where you do not control the influx and the outflux of that currency. So I'll kind of pause here if you guys have any questions or comments.
Yeah, could I jump in and ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
So based on traditional micro and macroeconomic theory, the 3 functions of currency are medium of exchange, store of value, and unit of account. You had mentioned volatility as being a function, but volatility is normally conceived of as a variable that's associated with a currency rather than as a core function, as in the fiat world, affected by various macroeconomic factors. I'm struggling a bit to see what you mean when you say that one of its core functions is volatility related. Are you talking more about it being a stable unit of it? Were you referring to the unit of account function there, where basically it's meant to be stable?
So, that's a great question. So you're right, it does differ a little bit from. So this is specifically a theory developed by Edward Castronova, kind of the forefather of thought as it pertains to sustainable in-game. He called it synthetic world microeconomies, or synthetic world virtual economies. And it's not a function of the currency. It's actually the 3 criteria that the currency has to meet. So the 3 criteria of the currency are, number 1, it has to be a store of value, it has to be a medium of account, and it has to be non-volatile.
So is this from Virtual Economics Designs and Analysis by Ledon Virta and Castronova?
Yeah, actually, yes, it is. Well
Okay.
done. You know that one. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Now, sorry, just need to clarify. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. So then, okay, yeah, the fantastic question. I love that. Any other questions or comments on that?
I mean, that definitely seems to be like where we're at as a greater community, is definitely looking for that game that is going to be able to actually deliver on stability. And yeah, there's definitely a whole lot going on within the Splinterlands ecosystem. Some of it which is great, some of it which is not so great, in an attempt to deliver that, and yet we are still not there.
Well, and one of the interesting, touching on Splinterlands a little bit on this, one of the really, really interesting things about Splinterlands is they're going about a stable, and obviously Matt knows this, right? Matt knows this is one of the key pillars of a sustainable ecosystem, because without a stable currency, you have chaos. And that's why his big thing to the community, like every proposal that he puts out, everything is about achieving the DEC peg, right? Because if DEC becomes a product backed stable currency, it unlocks a whole lot of sustainability and value for the ecosystem. So he understands this principle, and he's preaching this principle like crazy. And so Splinterlands is going for the entirely decentralized product backed stablecoin model. I'm really interested to see how that plays out. It's something that's never been done, right? Which is really interesting. And the way that 7 Piece is going about it is going to be a little different. It's going to be modeled after the way that Roblox has achieved currency stability. And again, one of the cool things about Web3 gaming or the advent of in-game item ownership is we can actually look to a multiplicity of ecosystems that have achieved sustainable economies and what they've done, and what is the innovation that Web3 gaming brings. We don't have to remake the wheel. One of the issues that I see with a lot of Web3 projects is they're trying to remake the wheel in so many different areas, right? And there's this concept when you're on kind of the frontier of an industry, they call it the adjacent possible. And when you're at the frontier of an industry and you are saying, okay, here's what's been established, here's what we know. Now the adjacent possible is something that I can achieve that's right next to what we know, that's innovative. It's something that's never been done. But a lot of these games, they're jumping 10 steps ahead and they're jumping way past the adjacent possible and saying, hey, we're going to try all this random stuff without a ton of validation backing up a lot of the experiments that we're running, and which is why a lot of them fail, right? Because there's so much on an economic level going on that has not been validated because they're not experimenting at the forefront at the frontier where a lot has been validated, but on a few new principles like just trying to incorporate in-game item ownership, right? Not to say that those can't be successful, but you're taking a lot more risk because there's a lot of experimentation and validation that has to be done on a lot more variables within your ecosystem than just a few or just one, right? So the way that 7-Piece is going to be tackling this problem is by using sustainable mechanisms that have already been proven to work. Roblox being the primary example of a stable currency within an open loop economy. And we can dive into that, but it's going to be modeled after how Roblox accomplishes a stable currency within a virtual game economy.
Okay, can you sell Robux and withdraw capital?
You can actually withdraw capital from the Roblox ecosystem, but you have to have a certain amount, and it undergoes a scrutinized review process. But you can, in fact, extract capital from the Roblox ecosystem, which is actually sometimes a lesser known fact about the ecosystem. The exchange rate is set, the currency price is incredibly stable, and extraction is 100% possible.
See, I actually did not know that. I thought Robux were only usable within Roblox.
It's actually called the developer the developer exchange program or something of that nature. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but they do allow you to extract. And another great example, we in Web3 talk a lot about CSGO, but we always talk a lot about CSGO without truly understanding CSGO. Now you ask me, Tyler, your whole core, your first pillar of a sustainable game economy revolves around stable currency. Well, CSGO has this vibrant skin ecosystem, but it has no currency. Well, that's actually incorrect. So CSGO skins are actually denominated in US dollars, right? People are primarily trading and using as a medium of account dollars for CSGO skins, which means that CSGO skins do in fact implement a stable currency in their ecosystem, which lends credit to the success of its ecosystem, which is really interesting, right? Because CSGO itself is actually not facilitating the trading. People are going to secondary and third markets and saying, hey, I'm going to buy this skin from you. And it's primarily denominated in USD. So
yeah, I'm not into first-person shooters at all. So I know that you're talking about Counter-Strike Go, but that is literally the extent of my knowledge on the subject.
No worries. So
Sorry.
Please do. Yep, go for it.
I think I had a question in like 3 parts, if that's okay. In the first instance, and with regards to Splinterlands, with DC not reaching peg and being quite volatile, and with SPS having shown a high level of volatility in recent times as well, and with the project planning on introducing what Matt said were about 50 new coins tied to land whenever that occurs, I was wondering how you see that as having, and this is not a loaded question, as having any, or how can that possibly bring about stability? And that kind of ties into part 2 of my question, is that I work for a project called Novo Pangea. And one thing that we've noticed, and a lot of other projects are doing, is we're moving back towards the, and I'm speaking for myself here, not for Novo, moving from the Web 3 model to the Web 2.5 model, wherein to prevent games from dying because of token dumps, and because of pending SEC regulation, likely regulation, they are shifting away from being liquidity providers for their own game, because that was something that was killing their games. And I wonder what your thoughts about that versus this P2E stable model were. And third, I didn't really know much about Robux, and I still don't. But what I'm reading is that Robux values Robux at about $1 something, whilst the market seems to value them at closer to 35 cents, pointing to something of a divergence between company and market valuation. And I was wondering if you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, so the one that's on the forefront of my mind is the Robux one, because that's just the last one you said. Yeah. So the Robux can only be there. There is obviously always a black market for everything, right? But Robux is actually only attainable via can only be sold legitimately via the company, and I'm pretty sure that the exchange rate is 3.5 cents per Robux. So that is actually the exchange. That should be the exchange rate set by Roblox. I'm not 100% sure. We can look into that together. Sure. But I believe that because if you go to their developer exchange program, they actually they give you the exchange rate right there.
Right, that's exactly. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, and it was saying that the value on the developers exchange system was one Robux should equal 1.25 US dollars. Sorry, 0.35 cents.
There you go. 0.35 cents. Okay.
But the purchase system would have it equal about $1.25.
I get what you're saying. So you're saying, hey, there's a massive tax levied on Robux, because if I purchase a Robux from the company, I can only receive probably 30% of the value out of the ecosystem, which
would presumably be tied to a lack of a liquidity market, which I guess tied into part 2 of my question, right?
So it's actually not about lack of liquidity. It's about how Roblox does business. So basically, for every dollar that comes into the ecosystem, Roblox has to think, okay, part of this money can actually be taken out. Now, I can't count every single dollar coming in as Roblox as revenue, because some of this money can be taken out. And they've decided as an institution to say, hey, this is the quote unquote tax that we're going to levy on people within our ecosystem, so that, if you want to take Robux out of the ecosystem, it's actually worth this much upon exit, but upon entry, it's worth this much. And it's not technically a tax in no way. If you look at it economically, it's a tax, right? But in no way is it marketed or described as a tax. But if you look at the in and the out process, it is absolutely a tax. Essentially, one Robux is not going in is not worth at all what it is coming out, and that's because Roblox gets to arbitrarily determine what the exchange rate is for Roblox in their ecosystem to what they're willing to pay you for it, and they're levying probably about a 75 to 80% tax on the value of Robux. That makes sense.
Yeah, I got you. That makes sense. That does seem to be a kind of a distortive market force, though, I guess I'd say.
It's interesting, and the people have an issue with it, right? Because it's like, all this money is being lost, and there's arguments to be made there, but at the end of the day, games like RuneScape is another really interesting one, and Roblox have achieved sustainable economies by providing a stable currency, and it's one thing that games have lacked in excess. Web3 games specifically have lacked in excess, because when you open up a currency to market forces, like SLP is a great example, right? Obviously, SLP is completely supply and demand metrics were way off, and there's a lot of other issues with SLP. But primarily, when you give access to kind of wider range of market, what's happening with the currency is the currency volatility is now indisputably affected by forces completely outside of your control. So an example of that is every single cryptocurrency has a high correlation to the price of Bitcoin. And there's nothing that you can do about that. There are points in time where the currency separates itself. It will go on a tear or it will go on a down. But ultimately, over time, there's a high correlation between the price of Bitcoin and any cryptocurrency. And that's because you've got funds out there, you've got exchanges, people are buying groups of currency together, and they're selling groups of currency together, and it's highly reflective of the price of Bitcoin. So when you open up your currency to market forces, you're automatically already saying, hey, my token is going to be heavily influenced by the price of a commodity that is 100% outside my control.
Yeah, that makes I'm with you there. Yeah.
And then, but you had asked some other questions, and I didn't get to those. I honestly don't remember what they were. Oh, one of them was the Splinterlands resources thing. So, and so I'm kind of a contrarian here, right? But it's sometimes you have to be able to look subliminally at something and say, what is it really? And what I mean by that is, so if you look at SPS and you look at DEC, SPS technically is not a currency, actually, funny enough. DEC, governance token is a new term, but if you look at kind of video games historically, SPS is not a currency. SPS is a quote unquote in-game commodity or in-game asset.
Okay.
So DEC is the currency for trade in the Splinterlands ecosystem, right? And so anything else that they're adding, like SPS or any of these resources for land, these are technically not currencies, even though everybody likes to treat them and think of them as currencies. SPS is not a store of value nor a medium of account. SPS is something else entirely. That's why DEC is supposed to be a peg, because DEC is what you're supposed to use to trade equitably in the Splinterlands ecosystem, right? That's the purpose of DEC. But SPS is simply a very voluminous, volume heavy digital asset that exists in the game.
But wouldn't you argue that it's perhaps been transformed into a currency by users who have used it as a P2E mechanism over time?
Well, that's what's interesting, right? So here, I'm going to compare SPS to, if you got MMORPGs are something that MMORPGs kind of are reflective of the entire open economy loop the most adequately, I argue, right? So if you look at an economy like RuneScape or EVE Online or World of Warcraft, I'll use RuneScape. I personally love RuneScape. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And if you go kill a boss by playing RuneScape, there's a whole variety of in-game items that you can acquire. And there's two components. So I did this whole economic study on RuneScape, and I'm going to introduce a few new terms. So there's a term that I call utility, and then there's a term that I call competitiveness. So when you unlock a sword in RuneScape, there's different levels of swords. There's different varying levels of strengths. So a sword has utility. The utility of the sword is to fight monsters and to fight other players. So, the utility definition is, how is this item supposed to be used within the scope of its creation? And then the second piece there is competitiveness. How competitive is this item within the scope of its creation as compared to other items, right? So when you go into RuneScape and you fight a boss and that boss drops a sword, that sword has utility. That concept is actually very similar to SPS. SPS is a reward that is being distributed as a result of accomplishing something in the game, and SPS has a certain amount of utility. And what's going to drive the price of SPS are going to be factors that are entirely discordant with anything currency related. It's all about the game, and we can dive into that more, but it's going to be governed by the same principles that drive price for the RuneScape swords. It has to do with its utility, its competitiveness, and other economic factors like, is it inflationary, is it deflationary? And currently SPS is inflationary, even though obviously it has a max, it has an end date. It is currently an inflationary item, right? So there's a lot of things there that we can get into, but I would actually compare SPS to an in-game item in any game that you're accustomed to playing on the MMORPG side that is distributed in large amounts and has certain utility, and people will either acquire it or get rid of it. And the whole thing about SPS is more people are dumping SPS than are acquiring it, and that's a direct reflection of its supply and demand and utility metrics,
or subjective lack of perceived utility.
Exactly. It's all about
utility is a social construct, I guess one could argue, right?
Right, and exactly. Well, the entire game experience is social is the social experiment, not social experiment. There's a word that Edward uses. I can't remember what it is, but it's all driven by psychological perception, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and yeah. Anyway, we don't have to go too far into that discussion, but that's when people talk about the different currencies, quote unquote, in Splinterlands with these other games. I would like to say there's always generally one currency that people are actually using to engage and trade with one another, and everything else, like AXS and Axie Infinity or these governance tokens, these aren't currencies. These are in-game rewards that should be treated similarly to in-game rewards that you've seen in Web 2, and the price analysis or the utility analysis, the competitive analysis should be similar to the type of analysis you would run in a closed ecosystem. But you've also got to factor in the open market conditions, like, hey, it's gonna relate to Bitcoin's price action, et cetera, right? So,
but I think this is the last thing. I don't want to monopolize this. It's just such an interesting line of discussion. I think that one of the challenges there, what turns SPS into a virtual currency, so to speak, it seems, is the fact that liquidity is being provided. And I don't know, is liquidity being provided by the organization and by the DAO or not?
The DAO
the
is
DAO
not
provides
currently in LPs. The LPs are being funded by, or were originally funded at least by the team, I believe. I mean, I don't really want to speak out of turn because I don't 100% know. But no, the DAO, there was a vote for the DAO to enter the LPs, and that vote was soundly defeated.
As it should be. But I would argue, and sorry, this question took a lot longer. It's just so interesting.
No, actually, I'm glad you're here because you're asking the questions that I don't know how to put into words.
Oh, fair enough. No, it's just, it would seem to me, Tyler, and I'd be very curious as to what you have to say. And I agree with you that SPS is meant to represent an in-game token, and that's what it should be. But there are two issues there. One is the social construct element, where I think predominantly developing world players have historically sold SPS because they've been playing it as a P2E mechanism. And two, and this is the gotcha for me, in a sense, not the gotcha you, just the gotcha with regards to it being whether it's a currency or not. If the organization, the team, is providing liquidity for an in-game token, I don't know how it can be called an in-game token instead of a currency, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. I think kind of naming and it's kind of all semantics at the end of the day. But going back to the liquidity specific question, there is no virtual item in the history of the world that doesn't have liquidity, right? All that liquidity is the ability to buy and sell an item. And every single item in RuneScape has quote unquote liquidity being provided by natural market forces. There's not liquidity providing, but you have merchants and you have people who hold large amounts of the item and are essentially buying and selling the item for arbitraging the item and functioning as liquidity quote unquote providers by arbitraging the item. So, it's just a natural market function. It has nothing to do with whether or not it's labeled a currency. It's really just about, that's kind of market forces, and that's happening with any kind of digital item within an ecosystem.
Where I disagree. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, that's it. That's it.
No, where I disagree with you there, though, is that if the organization, the company, is providing liquidity, they're exercising something analogous to a central bank function. In a way, and for me, that's kind of what transforms it into a currency. Taking back the example of the project I work for, Nova Pangea, we stopped providing liquidity on the wax exchanges. So liquidity is still being provided, but it's being provided by players. So we're no longer exercising that central bank function. And coincidentally or not, our token has gone up in value and stabilized to where it was before we had provided liquidity. So I really do think that if liquidity is provided by the token issuer, that would be, and I think it goes beyond semantics, the functional difference that turns it from an in-game token to a to a currency for me anyway.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? The reason I use semantics is because it depends on how you. It's so hard to have discussions sometimes when everybody is defining everything differently, right?
Sure.
Like,
no, 100%.
I have zero issues with everything you just said, right? It's just depending on how in-game token doesn't have any kind of meaning to me, right? Currency is the only thing that has meaning to me, and again. Actually, one thing has specific meaning to me, which is stable currency. That's what has meaning to me, right?
Yes.
What are all of the tenets that could you make an argument that people can see or not see SPS as an unstable currency? Absolutely, right? I have no argument or beef there. Essentially, my whole conviction is around what is a stable currency and what should be a stable currency, and SPS. Basically my whole thing is SPS does not fulfill those metrics in any sense of the word. It's more analogous to what you would find within MMORPG economy in terms of in-game rewards, because it's very similar to the action and the behavior and the utility and the competitiveness, everything that's going on within that ecosystem. But I think you're right. At the end of the day, however you define it, right, what it comes down to for me is it's not a stable currency, and that's kind of where I take my importance of quote unquote currency, if you will.
No, and you make a very good point there. I think the point I was trying to make is, like, if liquidity is being provided, an in-game token is what users make it, right? They can transform it into a currency really easily, even though the intent of the design was not to create a currency. But yeah, this divergence between currencies and stable currencies is a tenable one, like absolutely tenable, because the only thing affecting the price or the value, the intrinsic value of a stable currency, is market forces that are operating outside of the crypto ecosystem. So it's a completely different beast. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So I 100% agree. I think the organization itself providing liquidity, there's a lot of questions there that can be asked, whatnot. But yeah, it's for me it comes down to, and I saw your question, Rick. 7 piece. So the word 7 and then piece, as in like I've got a piece of pie or something. Okay. Yeah. great question. I talk fast, so it's just my nature, right? I'm a snake oil salesman. No, I'm just kidding. But that's, I just talk really fast. My mind goes really fast. I talk really fast. My whole life they've told me to slow down. I just can't nail it for whatever reason. But yeah, 7 piece is the name of the game, and it just comes back to kind of those core tenets of a sustainable economy, which is number one, you need to have a stable currency. Otherwise, it's total pandemonium. Number two, which we've seen, right? We've seen that unfold real time in a multiplicity of Web3 ecosystems. And then number two, the second piece of a sustainable economy is called price rationality. It's actually very simple. It's hard to get this one wrong. And it essentially comes down to something that is rare, I would expect its price to be higher, right? So if I have a rare item in a game ecosystem, I would expect that item to be rare, whereas a common item I would expect to be cheaper. And that's price rationality. It's the relationship between supply and demand and price. Right.
But that's a very tenuous assumption, though, isn't it? Because you're assuming complete rationality on the part of the you're assuming
equal demand.
Yeah, and you're assuming an arbitrage-free environment for rational models to function.
When you say tenuous assumption of what exactly? Sorry, that my assumption that it's hard to get it wrong. Is that what you're talking about?
No, because rational pricing is premised on the idea of homo economicus, right? That all individuals are rational actors seeking to maximize utility in basically a free market space. But a lot of critical theorists and even neoclassical economists and whatnot have made it pretty clear that most humans are not rational when it comes to their purchasing and selling behavior. So I've always had problems with the rational pricing tenet in financial economics because of that. So I was just curious as to how do you foresee objective rather than bounded rationality emerging in this kind of ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So what I attribute it to is it's always, when you look at, I'll bring this back to statistics. If you look at it always depends on sample size and statistical significance when you're talking about ecosystems or when you're talking about impacts such as this, right? So if you have, like, Splinterlands had a really bad actor who tried to take down the ecosystem single-handedly and against rationality offloaded assets for ridiculous prices that did not correspond or I guess you could say agree with rational thinking, right?
Sure.
So, but when you have a large enough ecosystem, and it's kind of the whole Adam Smith economy argument that every person in an economy is working towards their own personal self-enterprise, right?
Yeah.
So every person, you can expect,
as Bentham called it.
Yeah, you can expect everybody to selfishly pursue the maximum self-enterprise, right? And so price rationality is based off of the belief that in a large enough ecosystem where generally everybody in the ecosystem is going to be pursuing their own personal self-enterprise, that's what you would expect, right? And that's how economies shape out, right? Obviously, you're 100% right. You have fringe activity and you have weird things going on, but primarily, price rationality is about personal self-enterprise.
Yeah, yes, I agree with you for the most part, but the challenge there, and I think we can go back to SPS with this, is it depends as to whether or not there's a consensus on what the value, intrinsic or extrinsic, of a given thing is. So taking the example of the people who are just offloading SPS, there was a complete lack of price rationality there because they had a short-term orientation, whilst people like us might have a longer-term orientation. So if there's no consensus as to what the underlying function and value of the asset is, which is very possible in any system with a heterogeneous user base, I struggle to see how rational pricing could emerge, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Well, what you described is literally actually price rationality being accomplished. So the problem with SPS is utility is different to each person. And within a game ecosystem, if you read any studies on game ecosystems, they'll talk about the different archetypes of people that exist within the ecosystem. So for example, I can't remember who, I just read a paper actually today on my phone. This is a great, hold on. I'm going to see if I grab the title. This is a really good example. Cal State, who wrote this? This is an analysis of virtual economies in video games by Bishan Alexander Hamidi. So,
I've read this piece. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the contentions, right? Oh, it's not really a contention. It's just an observation, is that in every ecosystem, you've got different types of people. And he makes the distinction between the merchant types, or he calls them the virtual entrepreneur. I think he calls them the virtual entrepreneur, the person that is actually engaging in commerce for the intent of obtaining personal satisfaction from obtaining the most resources via trade. So that's the virtual entrepreneur, if I'm not mistaken, on how he classified that. But then you've got and I think he called it the killer. And the killer in an MMO, and again, let me be clear, this is all specific to an MMORPG system where generally you're adventuring and you're killing monsters, but you've got another archetype, which is the killer. And the killer's personal satisfaction comes from maximizing their ability to competitively kill enemy monsters or enemy players, right? Yeah. So what does that have anything to do with what we just talked about, price rationality? Where it actually comes, so I threw out a term earlier that was utility. You're 100% right when you say utility is a social construct, because utility depends on perception of the archetype of the person interacting with the item, right?
Or so not necessarily the archetype, just their vision of what rationality is.
Yeah, 100%, right? If I'm a merchant, if I'm the virtual entrepreneur, the perceived utility of an item, of a sword, has the exact same perceived utility to me as a lump of coal or iron ore.
Right.
It's utility to me.
Yeah.
Right. But as a killer, the utility between a lump of coal and a sword is incredibly different. And that's what drives price rationality, right? Is all of these competing forces of perceived utility driving demand and supply of these various virtual in-game components. So take SPS, for example. When you talk about the people in the developing world, well, what is utility? What is the utility of SPS? The utility of SPS is income for them, right?
Yeah.
SPS is primarily seen as an income source, whereas let's say that you and I are more of an investor archetype. We're saying, okay, I care about the future of Splinterlands, and I think this can go up, right? I think if Splinterlands is successful, this can go up. So I'm going to accumulate and hold SPS because the perceived utility of SPS to me is not income, but I don't want to say security, growth play, I guess you could say, right? So when you talk about price rationality, what drives price rationality is the differentiation between perceived utility and then competitiveness of utility within in-game items. And you're 100% right. We're literally seeing that play out with SPS right now because the perceived utility is what's driving the price action. Right?
My one contention with that, and maybe it's a quibble, is that the rational pricing model is premised on the elimination of arbitrage through rational behavior on the part of Homo economicus. But when you have something like SPS where there's such a fundamental disagreement over utility, and you have flippers or whatever you want to call them in terms of archetype, people who will flip their SPS for income, that problematically creates arbitrage. So a lack of consensus surrounding the nature and utility of a given token or asset, for me, detracts from the possibility of rational pricing.
I see what you're saying. My contention would be it's rational pricing within the realm of utility per archetype, because again, what you're saying is there's competing perceptions of utility, and it's making it difficult to establish a consensus on what utility is. Well, every archetype has its definition of utility, and what's going to drive price rationality is the relative impact and influence of each of those archetypes driving perception of utility, right? So
I'll agree with you there. Yeah.
If there's more people saying, "Hey, I see it," like if 99% of people are saying, "Hey, I see SPS as an income source," and 1% of people are trying to accumulate and hold, obviously SPS is going to fall, right? Yep. But if 90% of people are saying, "Hey, I see this as an investment," and 10% of people are saying, "I see it as," and you can actually relate this to Axie Infinity, right? Because 90+% of the utility of SLP was income related, and as soon as that went away, the entire ecosystem fell on its head, right? Because the utility of SLP was in its ability to give income to the developing world, right? So you're 100% right, because it depends on how you define it, right? If you're saying, if you're saying a consensus, one consensus for utility, that's never going to happen, and that's proven in virtual economies where consensus on utility has its own sphere, right? You've got the virtual entrepreneur sphere, you've got the sphere of the killer, you've got the sphere of whatever other archetypes exist. And depending on the relative population and influence of each sphere, that's what's going to drive price rationality. And that's what's actually fun about those kinds of ecosystems is you've got a plethora of competing perceptions of utility. And what's interesting about Splinterlands is you see the perceived utility of it as an investment going down, because as the price collapses, more and more and more people, their perception of it as kind of an investment class falls, because they lose their conviction in that, right? So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? But that's the second piece of a sustainable economy is, and again, we got really, really new. I generally don't get so nuanced. I love it, by the way. I generally don't get so nuanced into the actual, economic components of each of these pieces. But the first piece, again, is a sustainable currency. The second piece, price rationality. And obviously, we'll make the caveat here, price rationality based on relative impact and influence of the social, of the utility perceptions of the archetypes, right? So, and then number three, in this mechanism is what we call proper allocation, And so this one is also very important. And the fundamental premise behind proper allocation is that per unit of effort, every player in the ecosystem should expect similar treatment. So, and drop rates are a fantastic example of this within video games. So if I go kill a boss in World of Warcraft or in RuneScape, programmatic or algorithmically, it's determined what is my chance at receiving whatever drop. So let's say that a drop, like let's say that a really rare sword has a 1% drop rate. So per unit of effort, I'm going to have the same chance at receiving that drop as every other player in the game. After killing this beast 100 times, I am likely to have received this sword, and that's the same per unit of effort across the entire ecosystem, which is what we call proper allocation. That's incredibly important. It's equality and it's equitable opportunity within a video game ecosystem. That's incredibly important for player perception, because players perceive if players perceive that proper allocation is not there, you actually run into a lot of issues. It's more of a cultural thing, actually, but you run into a lot of issues if proper allocation is not well oiled. So those are the three components. Those are the three components of a sustainable virtual economy. And let's see here. Where was I going with this? You guys got me on a fantastic tangent about just going into them. Oh, this was all about 7-piece.
Yes,
so
I love the deep dive into tokenomics, but yeah, how do we earn the token? Let's talk about gameplay for a bit.
So 7-piece is, let's see, that's what's driving the economy here, right? So there's actually going to be, the way that 7-piece is going to work is it's modeled, again, after ecosystems that have shown success in a variety of mechanisms and kind of addressing this, what I call the adjacent possible. So there's actually going to be what we call a soulbound token or a soulbound currency, and the soulbound item that you receive is going to be your ability to upgrade your in-game stuff. So everybody's going to start with pieces, and everybody is going to have the equal opportunity to earn and upgrade pieces. So you'll earn this game token by by winning battle matches against other people. And you'll be able to use that to upgrade your armor, to upgrade your pieces to higher levels and to acquire new pieces. And what happens is, if you want to engage in a player-to-player economy, you can actually purchase a stable currency that, you can purchase a stable currency within the ecosystem that allows you to engage in player-to-player trade. And so that stable currency is not at all earned. It can only be purchased. And then you can also sell your stuff within the ecosystem. So you can sell, rent, all of that. You can sell your items and whatnot within the ecosystem and then receive compensation in that currency. So it's very similar to how Roblox works, right? There's no way to earn Robux except for selling things, right? And so if you're upgrading all your stuff in the game and you have rare pieces and you're doing cool things, you'll be able to acquire wealth via grinding and then be able to sell or rent that wealth to other people, and you will be able to remove that wealth from the ecosystem should you deem it necessary. But it's proper allocation. Everybody has the same chance at receiving all the stuff, essentially. If that makes sense. So any questions there? I don't know how great a job I did of explaining that, but let's see if there are any questions or anything that anyone wants to discuss on that piece.
Can you
New voice.
walk us through the actual the gameplay loop? Like, what is I know you're going to be competing against another person to earn in-game items, tokens, whatnot, but how does that competition look?
Yeah, of course. So basically, it's a strategy turn-based gameplay that's very simple. So you go into a draft mode and you select pieces that you can see a map and you can see your opponent, and you select pieces, and then the pieces actually engage on a battlefield. So you have your pieces and you move them, and you try to capture what are called neutral locations, neutral flags, or you try to eliminate your opponent. So the win condition is you capturing the majority of the neutral locations or neutralizing the majority of your opponent's forces. Via that game loop, you win some of that token that then enables you to upgrade your stuff and try to acquire new pieces.
All right, so help me to visualize this map. Are we talking like a chessboard? Are we talking like League of Legends or like spider tanks? Like what?
Yeah, fantastic question. It's more akin to chess. You'll be moving pieces, and your pieces will be, you'll take your turn and you'll battle your opponent, and your opponent's taking their turn. So it's more akin to a board game or chess type environment that's kind of more fast paced, and the games are quicker than your general board game or chess match. But it's similar in that regard.
Okay, and so are you like you're drawing a card and playing like one thing per turn, outlaying, making your pieces move?
Yep. So you basically start with pieces, and then you're maneuvering those pieces strategically on the board to kill your opponent or capture those neutral locations. And each of your pieces have different abilities and stats. So you strategically select the pieces based on the map that you encounter, and based on the pieces that your opponent is selecting in a draft mode, and then you battle it out by moving your pieces on a battlefield as your opponent's doing so, trying to kill them and outmaneuver them or capture the neutral terrain.
All right, I'm kind of digging it. And are you going to have kind of Splinterlands style where you have each match is going to have its own set of rules and circumstances particular to that match, or is each match going to kind of be the same thing, and the gameplay is entirely differentiated by what actually happens between you and your opponent?
Yeah, fantastic question. So it's not rule sets in a sense. The map is kind of the differentiating factor. So the map will have different things on it, and the maps will always be different. So depending on the map that you encounter, and then depending on how your opponent is selecting their pieces, that's what's going to drive differentiation game to game.
Okay, so each map is going to be different. Are they procedurally generated, or are there a specific number of maps that you have that are already... How is that happening?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question. You have stumped me for the first time tonight. I actually don't know the answer to that question, so I'll have to find that out. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. We have quite a few maps. I don't know if they're procedurally generated or how that occurred. So I'll have to discuss that.
Alrighty, and when are we looking at launch on this?
So I always like to be very careful about launch dates because, and obviously I've been in software development for a long time, and inevitably what happens is you set a timeline, you set a launch date, and then you encounter, when you're building new innovative technology, it's literally impossible to accurately determine when you're going to be able to accomplish something that's never been done.
Oh yeah, it's
right?
either going to take half as long as you think or 3 times as long as you think. And if it takes half as long, it's 10 times as expensive. If it takes 3 times as long, then it's twice as expensive.
Right, exactly. So it's always a fun kind of game of cat and mouse, right? But we're looking at mid-October launch date, soft launch mid-October.
All right, fantastic. So definitely coming down the pipeline pretty quickly. And
yep, it's gonna come out and be available on mobile for anybody to play. Oh, and you know what? I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You had discussed free to play to earn. This is the most innovative part of this whole discussion, and we didn't even touch on it. So this is a really good caveat. So anybody and their dog is going to be able to play this game and start earning pieces and start building up their repertoire of in-game stuff completely for free. So anybody can come on. You don't need a wallet. You don't need any of that crap. You literally download an app and you start playing a video game just as you're accustomed to, and then you can engage in player-to-player trade without, again, worrying about a wallet or any of this stuff. It's very much what you're accustomed to in a normal video game ecosystem.
And is it going to be mobile only? So just iOS and Google Play, or will it be able to be accessed like on PC or whatnot?
Yeah, great question. The way that we look at it is it's going to be mobile only right now because that seems to be the effective distribution mechanism, and where everybody who either has PC or doesn't have PC can get involved. So it's going to be primarily mobile only. But if we see a lot of demand for, hey, man, I wish this was on PC or I wish this was here, it's not actually going to be very difficult to accomplish that, especially if it's browser based. But primarily right now, it's just going to be a mobile launch.
And you did specifically say downloading an app, though, right? So I'm guessing
Correct.
that it's not going to be browser based, or
Oh, I'm sorry. That was probably confusing. I meant browser-based for the PC, if the demand was there. But this is going to be a mobile app currently, right now.
okay, so it will be a self-standing app, not a browser base. Gotcha.
Correct. This is going to be an app that you go on the App Store, you pick it up, start playing. You literally log in, and then you can start playing. It's that easy, right? But then you have access to powerful in-game item ownership via this free-to-play to earn mechanism. So when, kind of coming back to this whole concept of free to play to earn, again, the reason that I went over those pillars of a sustainable economy are because when you have those mechanisms in place, you can actually give somebody access to the full game loop and attract the Web 2 audience, or just attract anybody into this video game and have them participate in powerful in-game item ownership, right? And so managing the stable currency is paramount in accomplishing that type of ecosystem, as we've already seen in sustainable Web 2 ecosystems that have either involved in-game item ownership accidentally or purposefully within a monitored and reasonably scrutinized process. So anybody, the hard thing about a lot of these game economies is the way that the economy works is, Splinterlands or Axie Infinity or whatever, they've had to gate it. They've had to gate earning or potential to participate in the ecosystem behind large asset purchases because it ruins the economy otherwise, right? Well, the economy is designed in a way that for average effort per player, you are going to be rewarded, via proper allocation. So it's, only the best people in the game who have acquired the most things are actually going to be able to make anything out of it, which is probably honestly going to be the 1% to 5% of people playing the game. There's going to be a lot of hours spent. There's going to be a lot of grinding. That's how any normal video game ecosystem works and actually rewards players.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like it, and it definitely seems like a good attempt to acknowledge and attack a lot of the problems that we have within the current ecosystem. And it sounds like an interesting gameplay loop. I'm looking forward to that. And obviously, with this being a nifty product, you guys would have the integration there as far as the deck rental and whatnot.
Correct.
What I'm wondering about is, especially as an app that you would be on the Google Play Store and the Apple Store, they're pretty vehemently anti crypto in general, and like gaming and earning. Was my understanding. Is that like you guys have a solid plan for that? And have you already been following up on that process of getting listed on those stores?
Fantastic question. So they are historically fairly, now some crypto apps have been able to get on, in some crypto games, but the way we've architected the app and the game, we're not going to run into any of those problems, thankfully.
Okay.
Something that obviously we're very excited about. So it's no. The short answer is no. Those won't be a problem for us because of the way that our ecosystem works. You do have to be intentional about that, and you have to understand how to do that. But yeah, we're not going to run into those issues.
And so, what is the process going to look like for somebody who did want to send some value to fiat?
Yeah, fantastic question. So you're going to be able to, within the app itself, you're going to be able to engage in an extraction process, just similar to what you engage in Roblox. And you're going to be able to, per a scrutinized review, part of this is you have to provide, identification. You have to provide some documents to make sure that everything's in order and that this is being recorded correctly for you.
Okay, so we are going to be KYC?
Yep, it is going to be KYC. That's the only legal way to do it right now, and it prevents fraud and it prevents bad actors. Like, unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, at any point in time, bad actors like Iran or any country that is kind of blacklisted from an AML perspective can use any of these crypto video games and actually launder money through them. And so you've got to be very, very careful about who you let interact with your ecosystem and how you let them interact with your ecosystem.
How can you ensure global access? Do you have a global KYC service provider, or is it going to be restricted, gated to certain countries?
Yeah, so that's actually something that we're still working through. So, we're primarily focused on U.S. regulation because I'm sure this is not a surprise to you guys, but U.S. regulation is the most stringent, right? So kind of other countries don't even have severe regulation as it pertains to activities like this. So it depends on the jurisdiction, but we're primarily focused on providing regulatory structure for kind of the U.S. ecosystem right now.
And how do you anticipate dealing with I won't say likely, but the predicted changes in SEC regulation that may occur between now and then?
Yeah, the good news is we don't run afoul of any. We're by the way that we've architected the ecosystem, we're relying on frameworks that have been legally vetted already. So we're not doing this whole governance token raising money thing or any of this. We're using models and systems that have been thoroughly regulated thus far within video game ecosystems, but still allowing our players access to powerful in-game item ownership.
But if the Supreme Court of the SEC issues a blanket ruling that all of these types of entities are securities, your counsel is telling you that you're good to go?
So that's a pretty broad statement. It kind of depends on. So
I just meant in a general sense. Sorry.
So Roblox, for example, again, ecosystem. Roblox is an ecosystem that has existed for a good amount of time and has been litigated heavily. And this process is very well vetted, right? So SEC regulation as it pertains to cryptocurrencies or NFTs don't necessarily impact. I mean, I don't want to say you never say never, right? I mean, it's pretty difficult to say, hey, there's zero risk in building a business. That's never really going to happen.
Agreed.
But, when I talk about this comes back to an important part about what I talked about earlier, which is this adjacent possible principle. And what I mean by that is, the best way to imagine it is imagine you're clearing a forest, right? And imagine you're at the frontier of a terrain where the forest begins and you're currently chopping down a piece of that forest, but you've got civilization right behind you and you've got all the tools that you need. Your supply chain is intact and secure because you're right next to a city, but you're clearing the nearest part of the forest. What a lot of crypto projects and video games did is they catapulted themselves way into the forest where civilization was miles back. There was no supply chain. There was no support readily available to them, and they're kind of clearing the forest around them, and they have no idea what beasts and dangers lurk there because, again, there's this differentiation between the adjacent possible relying on systems and proven litigation to kind of back up a lot of your claim versus just throwing yourself into decentralization that has no validation and no rulings on a variety of variables within your ecosystem, if that makes sense. I try to use that analogy to kind of paint the picture, but that's kind of where we are versus a lot of other projects that are kind of threw themselves into the forest, if you will.
As an attorney, that didn't make complete sense to me, I'll be honest with you. Are you basically saying you've thought things out? And I'm a little lost as to the analogy kind of buried me there.
Yeah, no worries. So maybe we can do it from a scientific hypothesis type of discussion, right? So when you're engaging in experimentation, you want to isolate one variable, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
But what a lot of crypto. So let's take Axie Infinity for example, and let's use the scientific hypothesis analogy instead of the terrain analogy. What they did is they threw a whole lot of variables in there that had not been tested. So they threw a governance token in there that ran securities.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they also yeah.
So you're essentially saying that your component parts have been tested through extant precedent.
Exactly.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I got lost in that analogy. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to be honest with you guys. One of my developers is a phenomenal creator of analogies, and I try to be like him, but I fail miserably. So, but I'll get there. I'm practicing in situations like this. But yeah, that's essentially. So to answer your question, I would never say never, but we're existing in a realm of security that many companies that through a ton of unknown variables don't have, essentially.
Right. So essentially, you're talking about proactivity rather than certainty.
Yeah. I think it's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, that's not to say there's no risk or there's not innovation here. But
no, I'd say anybody doing anything in the crypto space right now is exposing themselves to a high level of potential risk via uncertainty. But I mean, that's the nature of the game, right?
Exactly. And that's cool. I didn't realize you were an attorney. That's super cool. So
yeah, and then non-practicing, I've atoned for my sins. But I keep up to date.
Well, something I wish actually. I realize now it would have been cool to kind of do an intro because I actually don't know you. By the way, what is your name? I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't ask this before. I just jumped right into the conversation.
No worries. I'm Kevin. I just hang out with Rick some nights. Most nights.
Okay, awesome.
Probably way too often for my wife's. I stream as Prime Rogue Inc., mostly wax stuff.
Awesome. Kevin, great to meet you. Tyler, by the way.
Pleasure.
And obviously I know you, Rick, and I actually see Holozor. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a Splinterlands maverick by true definition of the word maverick. So glad that he's with us. Love this guy. How's it going, man? I don't know if he chats in here. But.
Yeah, I've just been listening in. I started listening in on the Twitch stream and decided to just jump in here, to get it 3 seconds earlier, because it was quite interesting. And I really appreciate the fact that you're really well read on these topics, because I did a few semesters of game design-y stuff back when I studied at university, and it's interesting to see how game design sort of constitutes the entire gamut of academia, whether it's art, mathematics, economics, the game theory. Basically, you have to be an expert in so many different things in order to craft a well-balanced game system overall, which I think a lot of people don't really appreciate in the Web3 space, where they just think, I've got an idea for a game, or they mistakenly go, that game that we used to play as kids, let's just make that a Web3 game, without stopping to consider the implications of what it is that they're trying to build, which we see a lot of.
Absolutely. And I think, I really appreciate that comment, actually. And it brings me to another really good point, which is a lot of what people don't understand. I just see a lot of conversation on Twitter, and I'm a Twitter degenerate. So I like to talk to people on Twitter and just talk about economies and whatnot. But one of the things that I notice pretty often now that I just don't know if I didn't pay attention to it before or whatnot, but there's this misconception that you can just bring Web 2 games into Web 3 as they're currently constituted. And what people don't understand is that by dint of of introducing in-game item ownership, you have essentially created, not essentially, you have created an open loop economy that has to be well-oiled and balanced. And I think, I don't want to speak for any creators of projects, but one thing that's really interesting is if you look at kind of between 2019 and now, there was a study done by, I don't remember what the company was, I just read it today. Dang it, I don't have this one. It's like 10 bits or something of that. You guys could probably find it on Google. But they kind of did the study of failed Web3 games. And there's already a whole graveyard of failed Web3 games and projects. And
was this the scholarly journal article?
What's it titled?
Sorry?
What's it titled?
No, I'm asking you. I'm trying to find it.
Is it the one that I discussed earlier? No, different one.
No. I was asking you if it was a peer-reviewed scholarly journal article or like a news or a website article.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember.
No, fair enough.
I'd be reticent to say it was peer-reviewed, to be 100% honest with you. So okay. I don't believe that it was peer-reviewed, but
I think
it doesn't matter. I was just curious in terms of trying to locate it.
I think you'd find there's very little material published that is peer reviewed in the crypto space because
there's a lot on crypto governance that's peer reviewed.
But in terms of how asset ownership within a game, you're getting down to sort of the niche level of PhD theses.
So yeah, you're getting to law review articles really. And they're not peer reviewed. Yeah,
the concept of ownership is a interesting one, a very, very interesting one, because one of my favorite games is Path of Exile. And I don't know if you're familiar with how the economy works, but there is a game mode that is solo self-found, where you can't trade with other players. You can't basically go and get other resources. It's everything that you find for yourself. Of course, there's another mode where you can go trade with other players willy-nilly, but the most interesting part about that is solo self-found hardcore. So if your character dies, then everything that they are carrying is gone with them.
Yes. Hardcore is the greatest invention in the history of gaming, just saying.
I have to agree with you.
Yes.
I play hardcore Iron Man RuneScape. So I recognize what you call as Iron Man. That's how I've been taught that principle. But yes, continue. I love that. I'm on board.
Yeah. But with the other side of the game where it's just I'm playing ordinary hardcore or just softcore Path of Exile, although I don't really think there's such a thing as softcore Path of Exile. It's such a complicated game and such complicated game mechanics.
You're making me want to play it now.
I know.
It's what Diablo 3
should. It's the Diablo clone, and
it's what Diablo 3 should have been.
Diablo 4 right now. God damn it!
In any case, I digress. The other part of this system is that the developers, Grinding Gear Games, which is again a suitable name, have a trade ecosystem that's basically on their website where you can basically open your inventory and say, I've got this, I want that, this is my rate. And it all comes up to basically be listed just like a commodity market would be in the traditional financial world. But there's no way to get funds in or get funds out through official means, of course. Much like,
black market is always there, right? Yeah,
exactly. Much like, there's all those black markets around CSGO gambling skins and whatnot. The interesting part to me is that this token that you speak of, or this function within the 7-piece game, it seems to me as though it's sort of like this experience that you earn through the game, but you have the option of then going to be able to use that to strengthen your character or obtain gear, and you have this sort of divergent path where instead of your character getting stronger, you can basically say, no, I'm just going to be a lowly peasant and I'm going to use the best gear, or you're giving the player this sort of crossroads of choice, which is interesting, instead of awarding them in both categories. I'm not sure if that's your intent behind it, but or if that is indeed true, but that's what I sort of picked up being a third-party observer here, just listening in.
Yes, I'm so glad you touched on that. So you just brought up so many. Hey, how are we doing on time, guys? This is probably the most compelling conversation that I've had.
Here with a time limit.
Okay. So the other thing I'll say on this, so you brought up two really important things that I want to discuss. So Diablo, I wanted to kind of do a breakdown with you guys on the Diablo 2, the failed experiment that was the Diablo 2 auction house, the real world trading auction house.
That was Diablo 3, sir.
Yeah, I'd still be playing Diablo 3 and probably would have never met any of you guys if that was still a thing.
No way, that was Diablo 3? I can't. I swear that was Diablo 2.
It was D3.
Auction.
I think I still have my emails from Blizzard taking their cut on me selling whatever it was that I sold back in the day.
Interesting. So, okay, because I'm seeing online it says the Diablo 2 auction house.
Diablo 2 had an auction house, but it did not
But
have
it was
a
for
real
in-game
money
gold.
auction house. It was just gold.
Yeah.
Oh.
Diablo 3 had a real money auction house for about, 3 months?
Yeah, and notably they had no real money gold, no in-game gold auction house either.
Okay, so that's super embarrassing. I got the games confused, but I'll be honest with you, I don't play Diablo heavily, but so they released it in 2011 and then closed it down in 2014. Awesome. Okay, so I remember this now. I apologize, guys. That's embarrassing. But so I wanted to touch on that, and then number two, I want to touch on something that you talked about in game design. So Supercell, if you guys, I don't know if you guys play any Supercell games or pretty familiar with Supercell, but Supercell, I would have to say, is on the forefront of the cutting edge of understanding the psychology of the gamer. And that's why they've been able to launch so many successful titles as a game studio that are totally different, but encapsulate kind of the components of successful game design. And so kind of touching on what you talked about earlier, I don't know what your real name is. I'll just call you Holozor, but you discussed kind of these paths that the players can take. And they talk about the Supercell team often talks about this dynamic between what's called power, skill, and luck. And what drives
it gives the player agency ultimately.
Yes.
Within the system, and that agency becomes part of their in-game identity, because if I pick the ranged attack over the melee attack, my identity forms into I have to keep picking that ranged attack. But then if they get a melee option that becomes appealing later on, they start to question their own sort of identity in a certain context, in a certain way. And sort of it's one of my favorite games is Slay the Spire, which is a roguelike deck building game where you descend through a dungeon. You have to make choices that are very obvious compromises between one outcome and the other. And every run takes about 45 minutes if you're playing slowly to do a run, is very different. And the fact that you have this agency and this notion of, if I choose this is being taken away from me, makes it a very compelling gameplay mechanic, at least to me. Maybe I'm a sadistic bastard in that sense. Another one of my favorite games is Darkest Dungeon, which again is a roguelike game where, you don't only have to manage your adventurers' health and their stamina and all this other thing, but you also have to manage their mental health. So if they witness their fellow adventurer get cut down by a beast, they can go into like a negative status effect of catatonia or shock or all these other things. It's just such a compelling alternate game mechanic that really connects you to the world and the choices that you make. Because so many games, I know on Steam, the choices matter tag is very popular, but it's not something that people tend to reflect upon all that strongly when they're designing a game. In so many previous games, choices are just inconsequential things. Doesn't matter which dialogue option you choose, the NPC is going to respond with the same statement and lead you down this cherry-picked path with flowers and whatnot. Whereas in a more mature sort of game system, everything can go wrong very quickly, and that should be okay. Failure should be how we learn, not a punishment.
I love that. Yeah, that was incredible. I'm 100% in agreement with that. Well, and the kind of one of the really interesting things. So it's interesting you say Slay the Spire. I've never actually played Slay the Spire, but I've watched it because my brother plays it. He's obsessed with it.
Don't. You'll get addicted. It'll take at least 30 hours of your life. Don't, is my advice.
That makes sense. And the funny thing is, I saw him beat it, right? And then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm playing it again." I'm like, "What?" So it definitely captured his attention for a good long period of time. So I think that's awesome. But kind of pivoting here to the Diablo 3, Tyler, you moron, discussion. So kind of looking at the failure of the auction house. This is one of the most commonly cited examples against the advent of in-game item ownership. And I just wanted to get kind of a consensus from the group on, because obviously this is something I've studied incredibly heavily. I've played Diablo 3, but I wasn't playing Diablo 3 when the auction house was around. But I really wanted to get a consensus from the group. Why did the auction house fail, and why is... Yeah, let's just start there. What do you guys think?
I think it's more of the lines of the administrative burden, the taxation risks for everyone involved in the system. Blizzard would not want to have bad press of saying, some guy sold something for $100,000. Congratulations to them. Look at us, we're awesome. And then 6 months down the track, oh, and by the way, they now have a tax bill that's bankrupted them because they weren't aware of their financial obligations or that sort of thing. So I certainly think that's probably one of the factors that led to its demise. Not so much a failure in terms of, the mechanics of how it all operated, but I think there's also it's always a race to the bottom. If you have an open marketplace that essentially allows the facilitation of an infinite number of goods, inherently the number of potions that a goblin can drop is not governed by anything because the number of players is uncapped. The number of goblins in existence is uncapped. The number of potions is uncapped. All of these sort of economic elements go in there. Sure, there's stuff that creates a sink for potions, which is, goblins doing damage to player health. But we all know how games work. You're not going to go fight the thing that does damage to you to go get a potion. You're going to go fight the thing that does no damage to you to go get the thing and then sell that. So I think there's this dwindling opportunity there the longer a system is in place as sort of empires rise out of that. I mean, EVE Online is another example, which I'm not familiar with at all, but I love reading those long, winding articles about this corporation emerged and these players got together in a guild and they spent this much money and this corporation emerged and there was an inside job and, all that sort of stuff is like really complex, fascinating, which I'm sure there's academic papers on. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on it. I'm actually doing my day job at the same time while having this conversation, so I'm not really paying full attention. So I'm probably not using all of my brain to have this discussion.
No worries. Well, I appreciate that. So it kind of came down to administrative risks from Blizzard is kind of what I assimilated from that comment. I love that. Okay.
That would be my assumption. Like, I haven't actually read why it was discontinued or why it was failed. All I remember is as a player getting the email saying, yeah, this isn't going to be a thing anymore. Bye.
Interesting. So you were playing at the time. You experienced the downfall firsthand. That's super interesting.
Yeah. I just wanted to sell the cool shit that I found.
I love it. Well, Kevin or Rick, you guys have any thoughts on that?
I never played it.
I unfortunately never got to play when the real money auction house was the thing either. I was so unfathomably excited about it when it was first announced, and I had, pre-ordered and, paid everything up and whatnot, and I was at GameStop at midnight for the release with a bunch of my buddies. I got my copy. I went home. I spent like 6 hours installing it, and it finally got done, and I went to launch it, and I got told, fuck you, your graphics card is a piece of shit. And so I couldn't actually launch the game, and my heart just fell entirely out of my body. And I have not seen it since that day, but it took me like 6 months before I was able to actually get a new graphics card to where I could run the game, and by that time, the real money auction house was already dead.
Interesting. Okay, so this actually, it all ties into my theory about, so we talked, well, not my theory, the well documented and discussed pillars of a sustainable economy, along with so it's really, it kind of ties back into what Kevin and I had a very thorough discussion about before, which was price rationality driven by perception of utility and then competitiveness, right? So I'll kind of remind you guys, I'll regale you guys. I did a study on the RuneScape economy and kind of broke down items into different categories. And so obviously you have what I'll call inflationary items. You have deflationary items. Splinterlands is incredibly popular because of its deflationary system, because you have cards that are limited in mint and then are only burned and are not additionally acquired past the mint limit, right? So it's a deflationary asset. And then the utility of the card is it's supposed to be used in battle against other players, and its competitiveness is how strong is this card compared to other cards within the scope of its creation, which is to be used as a battle card to battle other players, right? And so when you talk about kind of utility and competitiveness, and then the real world auction house in Diablo, and then one additional component, which is what Supercell kind of talks about, the dynamic of compelling gameplay, which are the three pillars of, they talk about luck, power, and skill. So if you look at all of the Supercell games, Supercell does a phenomenal job in the hyper casual model of incorporating elements of power. Power means that your relative ability to be competitive differs from somebody else based on how strong you've made your character or your stuff. So if you look at Brawl Stars, you look at Clash Royale, you look at Clash of Clans, every single one of those games has a power mechanic. And that power mechanic is, hey, my village is level 10 and your village is level 14. My character, my character in Brawl Stars is level 6 and yours is level 10. So that's the power mechanic. It's how strong is your character or your stuff compared to somebody else's. But then there's a skill mechanic, because the interesting thing about Supercell games is you can max out the power of your character, but that's not the end. That's just the beginning. It could be said that that's just the beginning of really compelling and engaging gameplay, because once you max out your stuff, that's when it gets really competitive, because now there's no more power differentiation. It's just you and your chess abilities versus someone else and their chess abilities, right? Can I beat you when, cards are down, everything is the same between us? Can I be better than you, right? So that's the skill dynamic. And then the last piece is the luck dynamic, right? There are some components.
No, get rid of it.
There's and well, that's what's interesting, right? Supercell games are very, very, very minimally influenced by luck. There are some factors of luck involved in Clash of Clans and Clash Royale and Brawl Stars, but they have a very minimal impact, right? Now you look at, so let's kind of take those concepts and then analyze the real world auction house. And this is the perfect example of why you can't just have a rote game Web 2 economy open it up to the world, because it's possible that it'll be really destroyed. And so having done a ton of reading and research on this, I played the game, but I didn't personally play during the days. The reason that Blizzard closed it down was because players were, the whole game loop of Diablo 3 is I'm grinding for better gear. I'm grinding through the dungeons, and my whole entire purpose and existence within this ecosystem is to have better gear. That's the primary reason for playing through these dungeons. I upgrade my stuff, I upgrade, have better gear, my character's maxed out. But once I accomplish that, that's the game loop, right? Like my primary reason for existence is acquiring that stuff. Whereas if you look, you compare that to a Supercell ecosystem, the power component is just the beginning. But in Diablo 3, the power component was the end. Skill didn't have a high impact on the gameplay loop. And so what happened was you had people grinding and earning this gear and then selling the gear at the beginning for really high prices. But then as everybody was able to acquire the gear, the whole game loop was defeated. Blizzard defeated the sole purpose of their game loop by introducing real world trading, because and that's what drove price rationality, right? Because the utility and the competitiveness were the things that that made the game compelling, your ability to acquire those items and then upgrade those items. And when the entire game loop was made purchasable, it totally ruined the experience, right? So when people talk to me, they're like, "Oh, the Diablo 3 auction house was a total disaster." That's why I tell everybody it matters so much how you design your economy and how you design the game loop around these components of utility, competitiveness, and power, luck, and skill, because you can't just introduce in-game item ownership into an ecosystem that is not correctly designed for it to inhabit, right? Because you run the risk of destroying your entire ecosystem, like Diablo 3 was just an incredibly unsuccessful experiment, right? So that's kind of the soapbox there, but it's something I love talking about to people who are kind of in the know. It's obviously very nuanced game theory and things that not a lot of people really understand about the auction house and how it functioned, and understand even Diablo, right? But yeah, any thoughts on that?
I feel
got
like
a little bit.
there
You go,
is
Rick.
an element of, and again, I wasn't there during the time of the RMAH, but within that core Diablo gameplay loop, your argument it's tenable, but it's almost self-defeating, because while yes, the gameplay loop is go kill shit, get drops, to go kill more shit faster, to get more drops, to go kill more bigger shit more faster, to get more drops. But even with the real money auction house, there really is no buy to ultimate power, because there's always a better drop. So you can't really get to that point where all gear is even, because even if you have all best in slot items, somebody still has better gear than you for the same exact build, because they got best in slot items with best in slot rolls, and they don't have all of them, because you will never, I don't care how much money you spend, how many drops you get, or how long you play the game, you are never going to fully max out every single option within your gear slots. And even if you did, then there is still a huge delta of the skill question that was also brought up. So that is something that I really actually enjoyed about the Diablo franchise as a whole, is, and we can talk about Immortal, since I don't have any firsthand experience on 4, and I understand that everyone's kind of shitting on Immortal, and for good reason, because it is microtransaction hell. But for me, I've not put a penny into the game, and I will not put a penny into the game. The first thing that I love about it is the fact that I can play it on my phone, get home, get off my phone, pull up the computer, log into the same character, and continue playing with the same friends that I was with on the phone. I love that interoperability of it. But more importantly, it's like, even with that, the microtransaction hell, everyone hates it because it's obviously very little else than a blatant cash grab from the company. But I love the world and the lore of Diablo enough that is like, okay, well, even if everybody else hates it, even if I was the only person in the fucking game, I still need to explore and find out what happens to Sanctuary. And that is something that I feel was entirely glossed over in your kind of summary of the gameplay loop, because there is so much more to it than just go kill shit, get big drops, make more money, go kill more shit. Because that core gameplay loop is obviously, you have to enjoy that or you're not going to enjoy Diablo. But even that by itself, I don't think would actually be as big as it is if it did not have this amazing depth of lore in the world of Sanctuary behind it.
Yeah, and as someone who doesn't really care for the lore, who was more so just the whole, I get to kill lots of stuff, I get to get lots of stuff, and then I get to kill more scary stuff and get even more cool stuff. That was that was enough for me, in the game. And when I come to that point where it was like, okay, cool, I got something that's cooler and more badass than what I had before. Am I going to just throw this to the merchant and get gold or potions or whatever? No, I want to try and give that to another player and get money for it. That's what I loved about the real money auction house. It sort of respected my time in a way and rewarded me for my input into the game.
Yeah, that's the part that I also love about the auction house, is that you spend so long farming, you get an amazing piece of gear, and then you use it for a little while, and you get an even better one, and it's like, yeah, you obviously you're not
you get an amazing piece of gear for somebody else that isn't you or any of your other characters builds, and you're like, I can't use this, but somebody else can, and somebody else has been hunting for this.
And yet at the same time, like, that's what I loved about hardcore, is that no, that is just your stuff. You don't get to give it to anybody else. So
I actually 100% agree with everything you said, Rick, and I think it actually plays more into the narrative, because if you consider, take Diablo, like, take the whole grinding for gear out of it, what are you left with, right? Or do you have a game anymore, right? If you take out the whole grinding for gear aspect, are you left with a game? Really, no, right? There is definitely powerful lore, but all of those are kind of subservient to the experience of grinding for gear. And the whole contention with the auction house is that the whole existence and of the game loop is grinding for gear, and that is, like, I don't get me wrong, I 100% believe in that, right? I play hardcore Iron Man RuneScape, and the grind is what I love, right? And just as many people love the grind, but if there's no fulfilling skill-based, my contention here, right, is that if there's no fulfilling skill-based gameplay at the end of the grind, then you're left with a broken real-world trading economy, again, which is not, it doesn't mean, if the game doesn't have that, there's nothing wrong with it, right? But if you look at why Blizzard decided to close it, and kind of comments from the community, was because people stopped playing due to the core game loop and that's really essentially being defeated, right? And losing kind of that grindability. And it's funny because this has actually been my experience with RuneScape, because RuneScape is this open world economy where you can purchase things from other people. But when they introduced Iron Man, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what RuneScape was meant to be. RuneScape was meant to be, I grind and, I've got to figure it out, because purchasing things defeated a lot of the experience, in my opinion. But when I was forced to just grind and acquire stuff for my character manually, I think Holzworth, they had another mode for the game that he played. It's similar mode, just named differently, but that experience is phenomenal, right? But the interesting thing about Clash of Clans is Clash of Clans has the same experience, right? It's about, I'm grinding for my stuff, but that's not the end. That's just the beginning. And that's why Supercell is so effective, and that's why it's esports correlatable, because maxing out your stuff is just the beginning of a more competitive and engaging experience. And my contention is that's kind of gameplay design that you need to build into a game economy that incorporates real world trading. Because if you're going to have, go ahead.
MMOs have the same problem. You get to you play through, what is essentially filler for 20 or 30 hours so that you can get to the end game, so that you can go and do the raids and the dungeons and the instances or whatever they're called in different
20 or 30 hours
games.
To get to end game in an MMO?
It depends on the MMO. Like, my MMO was Guild Wars back in the day, and that had like enormous narrative stuff in the lead up to it. Yes, you could level your character and do speed leveling in the starter area, but in order to obtain all the spells that you needed or the build items that you needed, you had to play through the story, because that's what got you the gear that you'd then need to go do the end game content, and the end game content was many orders of magnitude more vast than the filler, and I put air quotes around that phrase, the filler content that led to that end game content. And it sounds like Supercell Games, because I've never played any of those games, for your info, Tyler, really targets that end game because they probably know that the players that are spending the longest amount of time are likely to spend the most amount of money.
Yes.
Therefore,
Exactly.
by making that a enjoyable experience, and if they can pick up money from people who start playing the game, then leave at a later point, that's all just cream on the top. Because at the end of the day, we live in a capitalistic society. These are businesses. They're designed to make money. Sure, it may have started with someone just wanting to make a really, really fun game. But at the end of the day, the entire gaming industry is designed with one thing in mind, and that's to extract as much money as possible from the person playing the game.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
We can't escape from that. As fun as it might be, and as entertaining as it might be, Hollywood's the same. Television's the same. Netflix is the same. It's all a machination of how do we transfer money from you to us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's also a really good point, which is why, so I have conversations with Web2 gaming studios and kind of ask, hey, what do you think about in-game item ownership and why aren't you transitioning? Well, a lot of people are concerned about the monetization methods available to them with this new system, because economy balancing is the prime. And if you talk to any established Web3 game, first and foremost among their challenges about building a Web3 game is economic stability. Right? I've talked to guys.
You even need to talk to a Web3 game. You can literally just talk to Valve, because there's not only the Counter-Strike cases, there's the Team Fortress hats of infamy, there's the Steam trading cards. That they've been doing this stuff for almost a decade now, and they're sitting on an enormous pile of money, an obscene amount of money, and nobody goes along and says, oh, just because you got a cool skin in your Counter-Strike game, that's the end of the gameplay loop for you. I guess because it's cosmetic, as opposed to this gun will shoot through every wall and have homing bullets that will kill every player on the map.
Right.
But I think Valve, even though, they're a Web2 company and the Steam terms and conditions blatantly say if you want to launch a game, it must have nothing to do with blockchain or cryptocurrency. If you want to...
There's a workaround for that, mind you.
Of course. There's workarounds for everything. But it's in there.
How simple the workaround is?
I don't want to know, because then I'd be too tempted to make my own game. And I already don't have enough time in my life.
I'm going to tell you when you're done with this point.
You're going to tell me, and you're just going to force him to listen.
but in any case, sure, you don't own the stuff on your Steam account, not even the licenses to the games that you've purchased. But nobody seems to have a problem trusting Valve with all this, billions of dollars of volume.
Exactly.
And it comes to a point that I think Kevin and I were discussing the other day, Rick was probably here as well, is that you need to make the blockchain element invisible. We don't think about how electricity is generated and comes into our homes and lets our lights work and lets our ovens work and all that other stuff. And furthermore, not everything needs to be a blockchain, because blockchain is just a database plus torrents.
Yep.
Plus multiple points, all accessing and writing and reading from that database, where instead of it living on one computer, it's living on many other computers. It's fundamentally that corporate buzzword of cloud, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be associated with, a token or money. It's the underlying technology of resilience that is what makes blockchain great, not the technology of make lots of money because people are going to ape into it.
My contention about Web3 is that tokens should die, PDE tokens, as quickly as possible, and that the only blockchain function that holds any value for Web3 or Web 2.5 gaming is the ledger function, and that
love that.
Sustainability is based solely on asset ownership and asset appreciation. Because, let's face it, tokens kill games. I
Please
hope
stop
we don't see
speaking,
that with
Kevin. You're
Splinterlands.
making me even more bullish on like the EOS wax style model, where like a stake in the network itself is what brings value to the network.
Yeah, the corporate governance model, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Same thing with Hive to an extent, where
Yeah. It's just
you
different.
got to stake tokens to be able to transact and be able to do stuff.
If I was to dump $3 million into Wax tomorrow, I could control who wins the Office of Inspector General election. It could be me.
Yeah, if I dumped, I don't know, we did the math the other day, $2.7 million into Splinterlands, I could control the outcome of every DAO proposal, but I don't have the means to do this, and I know doing so would absolutely demolish all faith in the construct of a DAO. So
Let me. Sorry, go ahead, Holla.
So I'm smart enough not to do that.
But this is the degree of peril for me that's associated with Web3 gaming and tokens.
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at is by distributing this value of governance across many shitcoins. Let's use that term. I'm not saying
Shitcoins, indeed.
Shitcoin, but by distributing the governance of an overarching system amongst a great number of tokens, why have the middleman? Be more efficient, and your governance is based on the land that you stand upon, the blocks that you are occupying on that chain.
100%. There's not just that, though. I mean, to take the example of a game that I won't name, I have a friend who's a mini whale. He probably doesn't even control 3% of the total.
Is this me?
No, not even. This is a Wax game.
That's hysterical.
He has enough of they've been struggling because they're a year late on everything, which is highly reminiscent of other projects we all share in common. But in this case, he holds enough of their quote unquote in-game loyalty token, which is truly a security, a rose by any other name, to fulfill all the current buy orders on the centralized exchange on the decentralized centralized exchange on Wax. And he could make the token value plummet to near zero overnight if he wanted. And he only owns like 3% of everything. So it just goes to show you how vulnerable these games are to liquidity, which is in my mind the biggest threat, and something that I don't think I can be convinced that any project with liquidity has long-term viability.
My thing though is I still don't understand how you're saying that him buying up everything is going to tank the price.
Because the buy orders are in at super low prices.
Well,
because
yeah, okay,
so
so that is something that he could do, but the only person that pays for that is him.
No, he'd be the one. I mean, it's moral hazard. He'd be the main beneficiary of it.
How?
The game.
If I buy, okay, say that I have $100 worth of liquidity on something, and the first order is at 5 cents. I buy all of that. The next order is at 5.5 cents. I buy all of that. I'm driving the price up right now. And so I buy it all, and then I put it all back on the market at a lower price is the only way that I'm dropping the price on it. And if I do that, I am losing money.
If he's
I have a friend.
He's selling
it. Selling and not buying. Yeah, that's what I
have a friend who happens to own many thousands of flesh golems. I think most of us know.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And I remember being in his lounge room when he closed his eyes, had an iPad in his hand, waved his finger around in the air, then dropped his finger, and so haphazardly landed upon the flesh golem. I remember that moment. I was there in the room. This was before the flesh golem even had any stats. And he has never sold a single flesh golem. If he were to sell every single flesh golem, boy, I don't think there's the market depth available for that. And I think that's the example you're getting at there, Rogue.
Pretty much.
Interesting.
I'm talking about war saving and loot, by the way. But no reason I shouldn't say it.
It's okay. Yeah. No one's watching this anyway. It's Twitch and YouTube.
I mean, if they were,
maybe one day when we're older,
it wouldn't fucking matter.
In all honesty, out of all of my VODs, this would be one that I would actually point some people to, because we have had some great tokenomics discussions, and like I will be going back over this one. I don't normally watch my own shit, but
I feel as though you should make some clips out of this and then upload them as standalone videos.
yeah.
And maybe try and target that YouTube Shorts audience and numb some brains with our conversations.
Oh yeah, because just what we fucking need is more crypto people coming in, having learned everything they fucking know from TLDR 30-second clips. That's exactly what we fucking need, Hollow.
But would you prefer them getting that wisdom from the likes of us four or from the likes of somebody else?
Whatever makes me the most money.
You filthy capitalist.
The honorable intentions.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's hysterical.
I mean, let's be real. I mean, we're all degenerates to a very significant
Just on the topic of tokenomics, and I want to drag it back to the planes of familiarity,
right?
Where I'm familiar with, and I don't know if you've read it, seen it, looked at it at all, Tyler. What do you think of my SPS governance proposal that's currently in game?
I'm actually not familiar. I have seen. I love Gold Matters. I follow that guy. He's just phenomenal contributor to the. I love positivity, right? Like I'm a glass half full type of individual, but I actually don't know what it is.
Okay, so my proposal is we take some of the DAO stablecoins, 250K to be exact. That's what I wrote in the proposal. We put them into HBD savings.
Oh, that's
20%. Yeah, a 20% yield is obtained on those. If DEC is below peg, you take the HBD savings interest. That is, you purchase some DEC. You burn half of it. You put half of it in the DAO treasury. If DEC is above peg, you let that HBD interest accumulate, compound, and then the DAO retains those funds for the future. Doesn't have to be used for DEC burning or purchasing, but it's creating a flywheel of its own, so to speak. Now, it's not without risk, because in order to create HBD, you must burn Hive. So that technically goes and reduces the circulating supply of Hive, and in order to then convert the HBD back into Hive, you have to burn HBD. So it really sort of is on this pendulum. I was going to use the word pendulous, but I'm not sort of sure if that's a real word. It's sort of balanced on this pendulum of the underlying blockchain on which Splinterlands runs, governing its own success, which goes back to what Kevin said around how do we value the actual mechanisms that enable all of these ecosystems to emerge.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll be 100% transparent. I actually don't have an opinion on it, and the reason I don't have an opinion is because I do not know. I know very little about the Hive stable currency mechanisms, and my concern. I have this very strong conviction that it is incredibly, nearly impossible to artificially manufacture stability in an open loop system without a whole plethora of competing market forces driving all. It's what drives stability to the US dollar, right? And it's totally uncontrolled, and there's so many things going on, or a centralized institution can artificially stabilize a currency like we see in Roblox, right? So because every stable currency that's not pegged to the US dollar has suffered. So, if they're algorithmically, algorithmically generating stability. So that would be my only concern. I don't know enough about how it works. So that would be, I don't know.
Absolutely. I truly appreciate, the crypto space is very, very vast, and not everybody can understand every project. The thing that, I'm very much a pragmatist in all things. My day job, I do data analytics. And
I was going to ask you that, actually. I was interested in what you do. Yeah. Are you a developer?
No. I do basically, in my day job, most of the stuff I do is build Power BI reports for a large
Power BI.
corporation.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
I do use Python, SQL. I've had a history in doing business process improvement, corporate governance, all sorts of things. But I'm a very data-driven individual that will make decisions based on not my heart, but my mind. And a lot of the time, it often leads to my wife going, "Come on, you think too pragmatically. Can't we just do something for fun?" I'm like,
I love it.
What's fun?
But my actual academic background is in visual arts, so I've got a master's degree in visual art and design. So I couldn't have landed further from my academic learning.
That's hysterical. Interesting.
But yeah, I sort of look at, for example, the Splinterlands ecosystem as if I was, on the board of the company, these are the metrics and measures that I'd be looking for to govern my success. And a few months back, actually wrote a post about considering departing Splinterlands. And still, if someone comes to me and puts the right offer on the table, I'd probably accept it. But to me, the one Splinterlands asset that I would retain would be my SPS, because that's where I see that value. Which circles back again to that conversation where some people see it as the utility enabling them to earn in order to, live a more comfortable lifestyle in a third world nation, or ultimately, the more affluent class of people playing the game. I live in Australia. I've got a pretty decent salary in my day job. I'm pretty frugal. I live below my means. Some would say to a degenerate level, living below my means. I haven't been to a hairdresser in like 7 years. You save so much money. You look like a bum too.
I can see it on the picture here.
That's not even a recent photo.
That's hysterical. I love it.
The underlying sort of notion is, even if Splinterlands was to go to zero tomorrow, the entire ecosystem and everything, I don't see myself as having lost anything. And I think that's where people tend to get a little bit too invested emotionally with the whole, my stuff should be able to do this and my stuff should be able to do that. So I think not having asset ownership in some things is okay, because then people are not as attached to it. Then they can think more logically about it, which is an ironic sort of, paradox of thought, where it's, if you own it, you become attached to it. But if you don't own it, you don't really care about it that much.
Right. Very interesting. So you bring up a really good point about the whole proper allocation thing in my mind again, which is, I lost my train of thought there. You said something really interesting that I wanted to relate back to the proper allocation component. I'll come back to that. I'll remember it. I'll remember it undoubtedly. But I was also interested in Rick. I had another question. I actually don't know what you do for a day job. We actually have a really interesting crew here that I had no idea. So we have data analytics, we have law, and then Kevin, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do presently, but I mean, a history and law, pretty compelling. And then Rick, I was interested in what you're doing over there.
Currently, I'm a fucking cook.
Dude, that's what I'm talking about.
No,
I love it.
It sucks.
You'll bring a lot of joy to your family, though. You know what I mean? Cooking well. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I then did a PhD in international politics, and I do geopolitical risk analysis and equity analysis, market stuff for myself.
Equity analysis, as in
geopolitical impacts on various equity and commodity prices, mostly.
Oh, equity, like literal. Okay, I was wondering if you're talking about like equity within the world, like world equity.
In other words, I work in finance, and I'm an asshole.
Yeah. I think many a recent paper or study by Kevin is probably about grain supplies and utterly boring subjects such as this due to
I love
ongoing
fertilizer.
geopolitical tensions. Yeah, you know, urea, however it's pronounced, is probably one of the most fundamental commodities that he thinks about every day. So he just thinks about piss literally every day.
Pretty much. How it goes.
That is hysterical. Oh my
But
gosh.
if I could have any job in the world, I'd love to be an actuary because they're truly the people that take every plausible input and output of an event and analyze the impacts and consequences of that event. That would be the nerdiest dream job you could probably ever do, I think.
So what you're saying is that your dream is the most boring of dreams that has ever existed.
I don't think so because an actuary is probably the closest you can get to being able to see into the future beyond being an astrophysicist or something like that.
No, astrophysicists look to the past, sir.
No, it's funny. I don't know if this is common thread, but so I studied it at Brigham Young University in Utah, and in my accounting, you know, our professor would always remark that the most boring job in the world was being an actuary. So it brought
because
me back.
you know exactly what's going to happen because you've done the math.
There's no surprise. There's no surprise. There's no surprising an actuary. I love it.
Wow.
I love it.
I know a guy from BYU. Did you ever take a poli-sci course?
No poli-sci course for me, unfortunately. I was computer science and business. Computer science and business.
Is that poli-sci as in political science or political psychotics? Because they're
It's the same thing.
one of the same. I love it. That's
Absolute same thing. Wade Jacoby. That's man.
Wade Jacoby. Now that doesn't sound familiar.
I doubt it would.
I was on the other side of campus. You know, so
there you
you
go.
know, funny enough, I'm actually in Peru right now, fellas.
Oh.
Living in Peru. So Spanish is my primary method of communication at this point, and it's funny because you reminded me when you tell people you're from the U.S. they'll ask you, "Oh, do you know this guy in New York that I know?" And I'm like, "Oh, of course, yeah, we're best buds." Because I
get the same thing for, "Oh, you're a Marine? Do you know my uncle?" No.
It's just so funny to me, you know, the concept of, hey, do you know someone on the other side of the country? You know, it's like our perception of closeness changes drastically when it's
I ride a kangaroo to work. Dude, I would ride I would ride in the pouch of a kangaroo. I'm actually a really small person. I measure it at a nice 5'5". I don't know if everyone here does feet
Holy
inches.
fuck! You would be really. Do you know how big and tall we are in this room? And we all have beards, all three of us.
Do you really? That's what I'm talking about, fellas. See, I would be I'd be in the pouch. I'm joking.
We're gonna launch a podcast at some point.
I was literally thinking. Here's the question though, Rick. Are you already doing a podcast? Is this a podcast?
You're on the closest thing to it.
Okay. Well, if you guys are down, we should.
You're not going to stitch us up and say you've got an appearance fee, right?
No. Oh man, that's hysterical. Because I'm actually going to be. Funny enough, I'm going to be recording every Friday. And I was going to be inviting guests on. I was asking myself, I'm like, I don't want to do this alone. It'd be really cool to have a really fun group of people to you know, just kind of shoot the breeze with while we're talking some of these really complex and nuanced topics. So let's, if you guys want to chat more offline about that, I'd love to see if there's any interest in that.
Sure, we just curse a lot though. That's the problem.
No worries.
We're not very family friendly.
No.
What in the flying French family friendly fuck are you talking about?
It tends to be sort of my incredibly dark sense of humor, and then tends to follow into swing from incredibly dark joke to, I mean, I when I write my blog posts on PeakD, one of the most fun blog posts I wrote recently were, these are the 5 songs that I'd like to have played at my funeral. What are yours? That sort of stuff.
I still haven't come up with number 5.
And then I have a friend who blatantly just goes to me, yeah, I'd love to have Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. And
Wait, is that Crystal?
no, that's her sister.
Oh, okay.
Tyler, I'm putting
yeah.
list for that question in our DM on Discord, so you can see mine.
But in any case, I digress. You know, the whole thing is, you know, my personal views are that my personal views don't really matter. Because when people ask me what it is that I do for my day job, sometimes the answer I'll give them is I make great suggestions and get ignored.
Dude, see, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. I friggin' love that. I make great suggestions and get ignored. And then Kevin's is Kevin, what is yours? I'd really love this. This one's going to be good too.
He makes poor suggestions and gets listened to.
I think I would just say that I've lost any ability to God, who the fuck knows? I don't know. I've lost touch with reality to the point where my answer is I don't know unless you're talking about something I know about.
No worries. So it's funny that you bring that up because I'm thinking about like from the development perspective. So I kind of crisscross between product management, you know, technical product management and development. And as a developer, I build stuff. I get told to build stuff that no one uses.
No.
As a product manager, I tell people to build stuff that no one uses.
Yeah. I can relate to that. There's so much technical debt in the organization that I work for, where it's like, we need a report for this, and I'll respond, I'm sure we've got one, amongst, you know, the 16,000 reports that exist in the corporate structure. Like the company I work for has 10,000 employees, offices in multiple countries. It's a large, like top 100 Australian company, and you know, I sort of then often find myself having imposter syndrome sometimes, going, why is it me building this report and doing this thing? Because I sure as shit didn't go to university for this. I'm in a team of people who actually went to university and did data science and statistics and, you know, quadratical equations and all that stuff that I barely understand. And I'm sitting there as the whole, I went to art school. Literal art school where I played with clay and paint and all of that fun stuff.
Did you play with species?
No, I didn't. But I did often have quite violent diarrhea in my university days, but I didn't actively play with it.
I mean, that's not funny.
This is the sort of podcast we'd be producing, Tyler, if it was the 3 of us.
Hey, as Elon Musk would say, I don't know if you guys have been following this. Literally a Twitter degenerate. I've never used social media in my life until I got into this stupid space. But as Elon Musk would say, the most entertaining outcome is the most likely, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I started at the insistence of Kevin, I started an AI art NFT project because I studied
totally at my insistence.
Generative, like fractal algorithms as part of my art study at university. And when machine learning and large language models and AI art started to emerge, I was like, hey, I was doing this stuff like 10, 15 years ago. Let's catch up and see how it works now. And I got pretty blown away. So I started a thing, and as an aside, my university study was in photography. That's basically what my master's is in. So I would photograph weddings and portraits and stuff. I did the maths last night, 22 days, I've made more money per week than I have for my professional photographic practice spread out over the last 3 years. So if I was to aggregate that. And
wait, say that again, Holland?
So in the last 3 years, all the money that I've made from the result of my photographic work, which is irregular and not every week, would be about $77 per week. In this NFT project that I've started developing, I've probably made $77 per week since its inception. So it's performing better than the thing that I was professionally trained to do.
That's kind of terrifying.
That's funny.
At the same time, it's also the most prolific I've ever been in terms of producing work, which is ironic because it's not the sort of work that I'd normally produce.
But that's probably why you're more prolific now.
I found the niche.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to say niche instead of niche.
I'm still trying to figure out what my motto would be.
It's
because
we can get something really good for the finance stuff, but it's like I'm thinking cold-hearted, right? Like something. I'll get it. I've been thinking on it too. I'm like, we could get something really good with that one. Mm-hmm. I just don't know what it is.
One of the challenges for me is that I've been drawn into this. I own my own business, and I've been drawn into this degeneracy to the point where we now have a Web3 division, and I'm very much overstretched. I think, because I'm like head of lore at a project where I'm basically writing all of their lore. I'm learning to code. I have a bunch of NFT projects going. So it's like normally I'd say something like, I write a load of bullshit that people pretend to understand. But I'm also generating PFPs of cute dogs right now. So I'm kind of like in this existential limbo. So it's like, normally I'd have a very good answer for you. I just don't.
Kevin, are you in Splinterlands as well?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not bigly as some Americans might say in, but I know I am in.
So you're not American. Am I, Rick? Are you American?
I resent that question. I live
he
in this
resides.
fucked up country,
He
but
resides
I am not of
in the
this fucked up
United
country.
States. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So Kevin, then you've got to be like you what, Canada?
Yeah, I'm Canadian.
Yeah.
I thought he was. I thought he
Canadian.
was Spanish.
Yeah, no, that would have been Slovak. Mi nombre es Kevin. Mi español es no muy bueno.
I thought he was no, I didn't even know how to pronounce that, so I won't even try. I thought, going back to an earlier comment, I thought he was Iranian.
Oh, that's good, dude. Iranian. Yeah, I represent the Southern Hemisphere, fellas. So I'm originally from the U.S. of A., but currently going to be down here in South America for a good little while. So
are you there like professionally or on a mission?
No, so I guess I should probably give you guys a little bit of my background. So I run Nifty Arcade, right?
Yeah.
And my team is essentially fully remote. So my team is primarily in the U.S. and I'm down here. So my wife, I came down to Chile for a religious mission a little while back, and that's actually where I met my now wife. And so we're down here living near her family because we just had our baby boy recently. And
congratulations!
Hey, thank you. It's a handful, but love the kid to death. So it's a special experience, and we're just giving everybody the opportunity to meet him, and it's quite an experience. It's quality of life is incredibly different, and food is very different, and so it's quite an endeavor. But I kind of like the representation here as well, because we've got Australia, we've got someone not from the U.S. living in the U.S., we've got someone not from Peru living in Peru, South America, and we've got someone from the Canadian of
The Canade of oh fuck, I love it.
Or can Asia.
That's me.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I was going to say something, and then the thought tumbled out of my brain and splattered on the floor.
I
So
had
do
it
we
once.
all
It rattled around for a little while before it got.
It also hurt. Like I've never been in so much pain in my life.
the thought? It hurt.
Yeah. Thoughts are
Wow.
so painful.
I love it. Oh, and so this is the time where we all disclose our hive stuff. I know who you are, Pozor, but I don't know Kevin. I know Rick. So what is mine? I think I'm Sekai 3 or something. Kevin, are you in the math chat? Like, do I know you? Or are you chatting up in there?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not in Mav chat. Maybe I will be if the game is still alive in a few months. I'm very pessimistic on Splinterlands right now. But I mean, I would.
Yet I still somehow managed to sell you some of my cards.
I mean, I would buy that number of packs, although I've heard that math. But I mean, I left Splinterlands Discord so damn toxic. But no, I'm a casual Splinterlands botter.
Botter. Got it.
I mean, I play tournaments, but
nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Okay.
he often beats me when I stream on Splinterlands TV.
oh yeah,
But Kevin's Hive username is carry the 0, and the O at the end of the 0 is a 0.
what'd you say yours was again, Tyler?
I think it's going to be SEKIE 3 or SEKIE 0. And if it's not one of those,
E. Oh,
3 or 0.
Is it possible that you have do you have 0 followers on Peak D?
Yes, because I don't post on PXD.
Oh, now you have a follower.
Hey, thanks, friend. I think all the posting, the very little posting that we've done has been from the Nifty Arcade account, and it's mostly been to the stupid bot fighting that is a losing battle that I hate with.
So Nifty Arcade, you're the deck rental service, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I don't really know much about what you guys do. Why don't you give me the 30-second elevator pitch?
Of course. So actually, Nifty Arcade is essentially building the suite of tools to enable games to implement sustainable economies, and then the technology behind enabling sustainable economy. So when you look at Web3 games, economy is the most difficult thing to balance, but there's also a suite of tools that accompany a sustainable economy. Right, you have your marketplace engine, and you have the functionality behind people's ability to transact with one another. There you go. That's it, right? It's the economy and the suite of tools behind the economy. So, the MVP of our project was building this stuff for Splinterlands and seeing some traction there. We've raised some money, and that's actually what we do. So we're building a suite of tools to allow games to plug in and enable this economic suite of tools, essentially.
Via deck rentals right now, basically.
So the interesting thing is deck rentals is a piece of kind of a larger ecosystem. So if you consider all of the functionality of an open loop economy, you've got buying and selling, you've got what we call flat rate rentals, what Peak Monsters is renowned for, and then you've got what we call reward share, depending on how the ecosystem functions. Reward share rentals, that's what we do.
I've got a question for you.
Yep.
This was an idea that I came up with, and I'd be interested to hear your view on this, given that a significant chunk of Nifty's revenue would come from a model such as this. A couple of players have approached me saying, how would you feel about there being increased bonuses or R shares for a player who owns their cards? To which I then had the notion yesterday that what if instead of me charging a rental fee for my cards, if my card is delegated to somebody else, they get a certain percentage of the R shares. The person owning that card gets a percentage of the R shares. So currently I delegate a large portion of my cards to Rick. He gives me some SPS at the end of the week based on what he earns. But it would be an interesting thing to instead receive a portion of the R shares that he earns in battle that then contribute to my own reward chests. What would you think of that as a future model?
I support. So the way that I think it should work is along those lines. It would be really nice if the reward distribution were kind of evenly along the lines of everything that's being earned is evenly distributed across a reward share percentage. So including chests, right? And our system is so freaking hard to maintain because were plugging into Splinterlands and then having to kind of work around the constraints that Splinterland has built.
There's only so many API endpoints and only so many transactions you can pull. I've played with the Splinterlands data myself. I understand how problematic it can be.
Especially when you're trying to run a system that the API was not designed to support this reward share stuff. It's incredibly, incredibly complex. And for honestly, a very, very low ROI, right? So, and obviously it's interesting that, we're known as the deck roller service. Our platform, you can do the buying and selling, you can do flat rate rentals, and you can actually see your entire portfolio of assets, what it's worth, price action over time.
If you like to see a chart going down, go
exactly,
there.
Which is not popular right now, right? Unfortunately.
So what's your monetization pathway?
So essentially the way it works is games can plug in a suite of API that enables them to have this powerful in-game item functionality, and then we take a transaction fee.
Your goal is to basically build the market mechanic for something that the game may not have, interacting with its existing API, or you providing sort of an API framework to say to a developer of a game, sort of like a middleware, like Havoc physics would be in a video game, or that sort of thing.
Exactly. That's 100% what it is.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Kind of like what I think they're trying to do with Avenium as well, sort of build that as a middleware model. Hive Engine, the architecture of that's probably a middleware model as well. I think I'm speaking a language, Tyler, because I've done a lot of the whole liaising between product manager and developers, and sort of trying to bridge the gap of understanding between the two as well as part of my role.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you kind of have an insight into that tech world. Yeah, so that's essentially what it is, right? It's just a suite of API tooling, but one of the when you kind of talk about, the reason I talk about economy so much is because everybody in Web3 is so focused on technology, right? It's all about, blockchain technology does this and this and this, and they miss key parts of blockchain technology. Is incredibly difficult to use. The reason that very few people play Splinterlands is because it's so hard to play Splinterlands. At the end of the day, Splinterlands is actually a pretty compelling game. That there is no game out there that I've ever seen that actually emulates Splinterlands gameplay. It's an auto chess battler, but also a trading card game, right? There's auto chess out there like TFT and a whole variety of game genres in auto chess. And there's also card games, but never have I ever encountered an auto chess battler, which actually what kept me engaged. They have a really interesting indie game here that could be a lot more popular. And I've literally sat and watched people onboard. I did a lot of studying, try to help kind of fix this problem with Nifty Arcade, right? Because our whole goal here is to create systems that games can, my whole goal is I want games to be able to focus on building great games. When you're incorporating in-game item ownership into your ecosystem, you have so much more to worry about. You have to worry about the back-end technology. You have to worry about the user experience interacting with that player-to-player economy. And then you also have to worry about the economy itself, right? So it significantly increases the bandwidth of your project, which is why there are so few Web3 games being built right now. If you look at the market, there's probably anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 Web3 games available right now or being built, whereas in Web2, there's 1,500 plus games being launched every single day. And the reason is what this technology and this framework is so inaccessible. And what we want to do at Nifty Arcade is make it accessible, right? We want everybody to be able to build with the tech. And I was going somewhere with that, and I forgot where it was. I hate it when I do this, but sometimes I get lost in my...
Once you have a module in something like Unreal Engine or Unity or whatever, it just becomes another thing that you can use to monetize your game. And there's no reason that Web3 and Web2 can't coexist, even in the same ecosystem. Sure, it makes it a lot more complicated economically, but from a development standpoint, whether you accept a virtual currency or a real-world currency, the function is the same. You present the player an object based on their purchase. It doesn't matter what the currency is. What matters is whether or not your success as an organization hinges on a crypto market cap economy, a traditional economy, because in the real world, if you fail, sure, great, you've got no money. But in the Web3 world, if you fail and you've got a whole bunch of players who've got stuff that they own, they're like, bloodthirsty and stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's the whole profit incentive, right? Everybody. It comes back to kind of that utility discussion of everybody is here to make money, you know, which is also in itself a big problem. You know, so
Well, I dislike the term making money because we're not actually creating any money from
not
thin air.
creating any
That's the
value.
job of central governments and all that sort of stuff.
good point.
We're just transferring wealth in
We're here
exchange
to
for
earn. We're
entertainment.
here to earn existing money.
Yeah,
To transfer money from others.
transferring.
Money transferal. I love that. It's a great point. And I remember you brought me actually back to where I was going, talking about just onboarding into Splinterlands. Right. I've watched tons of people. I've literally sat at a computer and watched somebody try to play Splinterlands, and it's an absolute nightmare. I don't know if you guys remember what it was like, but getting and playing Splinterlands is actually not that bad. Like, you set up, the tutorial is kind of iffy, but
no, sir. The tutorial is a fucking dumpster fire.
I've been in Splinterlands since the very, very beginning. I have some stuff on my YouTube called Classic Splinterlands, and going back to it and like seeing all the gradual changes and how much the interface has changed. I would say that the new player experience has become more and more complicated as time has gone on. It has not been simplified.
As someone who's
There were less buttons back then.
As someone who's been in Splinterlands for 8 months, I would say that the user onboarding experience is garbage.
right.
Compared to other projects I'm involved with. It's really bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of the conundrums of, you know, digital asset ownership or in-game item ownership in Web3 is, you know, if you're shoving Web3 down their throats by making them create a wallet.
I kind of like the model where the game in its opening moments gives you a glimpse and a taste of everything and all the powers. And then a great cataclysm occurs, and then you're back at square one. You have to then gradually learn how to obtain and acquire all those great powers. So if you started off playing your first 10 to 15 Splinterlands games in Diamond League with all the cards maxed out at your disposal, you get 10 battles or maybe 20 battles with all of that. It gives you a real taste for what that end game is going to be like. And you're like, wow, this is awesome. Look at all these abilities. This is incredible. And then, I don't know, you get struck by lightning or a rock falls on your head, and you've got to
lose all the cards.
The basics.
All the cards fall down a well.
Yeah. And then you go back to basics, and you've got to then build to that, and then you look at the leagues as these mechanisms of achievement. It would be a much better player experience. You can then tie it into lore. You can stitch it up with land, and you can grab some of the lore stories and have them as FMVs that are presented to the player instead of being this sort of detached thing from the, you know, it's lacking a lot of the polish that AAA games would have. Not even AAA games, you know, that indie games would have doing that sort of stuff.
Right. One, it's, you know, it's their priority. It's a priority thing, right? Just for context, Tyler, as well, part of the other great history of jobs that I did once upon a time was I was a professional video game journalist for about 3 years as well. A video game journalist. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about, like, you know, accepting a game from a publisher and then writing a happy review for them because they're spending advertising bucks on your site. I almost got fired from one of my writing jobs as a freelancer because I wrote a very genuine review of a game that was ported to PC, a very popular game, Grand Theft Auto 4. There you go, I named it. And Rockstar came along and said to the outlet that ran the review I wrote, you remove this article or we never spend another advertising dollar with you. And they pulled it. And I was like, great, I'm never writing another article for you guys. See you later.
Oh my gosh, no way. Oh my gosh.
Because I was, again, pragmatic and honest. I didn't just burn bridges. I was like the Allies in World War II. I was just destroying bridges.
I didn't burn bridges. I nuked bridges.
Yeah.
I didn't burn or nuke bridges. I Jeff bridges.
It was just along the lines of, you know, I've got the academic experience of, studying game design in the context of visual art and technical art and that sort of stuff. But also that sort of, one of my jobs was doing video game journalism, but the job that I had before that was working in public relations for Vivendi Universal Games, which was then subsequently acquired by Activision, which sort of was the ghost of Sierra, if you remember them.
I love Sierra so much.
Yeah. So Vivendi Universal Games was sort of like the thing that acquired Sierra, and then that was acquired by Activision Blizzard. So I've worked on sort of both sides of the fence. So I know how that symbiotic sort of relationship works. I wouldn't call it symbiotic; it's more parasitic between video game media and video game publishers. It's
interesting.
Yeah, I've seen the world from a lot of perspectives and angles.
We could use a lot more hard-hitting journalism in Web3.
But that's
everything in Web3 is like hype stuff. That's all it is.
Yeah,
right.
I am the anti-hype man.
Don't buy my project; it's terrible, and I'll probably rug you. Love, Holazor.
No, but it's almost like I think hype should grow organically. Contrived hype will turn me away from a project in an instant.
That's why I dislike so much stuff, so much copy that's written by ChatGPT, because it's so obviously written by ChatGPT.
It's so positive.
Yeah. Like to you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to read this to you, Tyler, because this is sort of the attitude, and maybe this is why my photography business doesn't make a lot of money. God damn it, my SSL certificate's broken on my website. But anyway, my biography on my photography website is hello. Actually, no, I'll just send you a URL, because it's sort of, you need to see. I want you to read it, actually. I want you to go to my website, ignore the fact that it doesn't have an SSL certificate.
So you're sending me you're a crypto bro, sending me a suspicious link.
No. This is my staging site for my photography business.
I'm just kidding. You're good.
But scroll down to the bio, because the stuff that's struck out is pretty important to the impact of how it's read, and I want you to read it out loud.
And I need to grab another drink while you're doing this. I will be right back.
Where did you want me to go?
The about section.
About. Okay. Just read from. Hello. Douglas Adams here. Just kidding. It's Steven, your friendly neighborhood photographer. I've been snapping pics since before my face could sprout hair. I take my inspiration from the theatrical and dramatic paintings of the I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm going to say Raphaelite artists. I'm obsessed with light, and I'd never settle for mediocrity. Now, let me be real sincere with you. My mind is like a runaway train, careening with visions that often derail. A constant battle between pursuing perfection and just getting the dang shot. I'm always yammering on about the properties of light in any given environment, but somehow I managed to capture images that my portrait subjects absolutely adore. I love what I do, even if it means I'm constantly appropriating the broke artist life. But hey, I've got a master's degree in visual art and design to back up my passion, so at least I'm not just some random man from the internet with a camera. I've got 3 of them. Here's the thing, I'm not here to make a fortune. I'm here to work with you to create something truly unique and special. And yeah, if you want to give me some cash in exchange for your image, that'd be great. But whether you're paying me or not, I'm always down to collude and bring your vision to life. So don't be shy. Confidently fill out that little form below with all the reasons we should create magic together, and let's get started. I promise I won't ignore your inquiry unless I'm elbow deep in a pizza or tinkering with some new lighting equipment. There's also the chance that I'm being held captive by a feline master, and perhaps one day I can escape. Please help. Book your shot. I love it.
Like that's the sort of marketing we need in crypto.
Yes. 100%. Absolutely.
Honest, sarcastic bullshit.
That's what we need on a podcast. You know what I mean?
I can also confidently say that since publishing this, I've not received one single photographic booking.
So what you're saying is it's incredibly effective.
Yeah, I think it's just that my photographic work is just not good enough. It must be that.
Oh man, I love it. Well, Fellas, it is 2 a.m. here, and I think Australia time is really different. I don't know, but the cane of, I don't remember what I
If
said
it's
before.
2
but-
a.m. there, then you are an hour ahead of our Canadian, an hour behind our Americanadian, and 11 and a half hours off of our Australian friend.
So our
Yeah,
Australian friend is the only wise one among us.
not really.
I'm completely inverted from my wife's schedule right now.
Likewise.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'm gonna bounce, but I've got to. I would love to, honestly, if you guys are honestly interested, I'd love the four of us to connect again on doing something. I will be starting to record every Friday, so if this is something you guys would honestly be interested in, I would absolutely love to. Because I'm going to start bringing in guests, anyone that I can from the Web3 industry, any influencers or anyone that I think would be interesting to talk to. We honestly have a really... Go ahead.
I'd love to come if you don't call me an influencer.
I don't know. I kind of want that label. I want to be on a beach somewhere wearing a bikini, terrifying people.
Yo, someone on our Novo Pangea stream earlier, our founder sent them a Novo Pangea Speedo because they said they'd actually wear it, and he fucking came on wearing a suit, and then he got up and he was wearing the Speedo. It was glorious.
That's great.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, I'm Rick, do you have all of us on Discord? Do you mind just throwing together a group chat?
Yeah.
Maybe you guys are already in a group chat. I don't know.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, and we'll definitely continue the conversation moving forward. I'll also have some things to talk with you about off stream as well.
Awesome.
But of course, want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. And,
Pleasure meeting you.
It's been a wonderful conversation. Definitely looking forward to actually seeing the game and also learning more about the world. And we got one lore writer over here for another world, and I'm also writing the lore for my game world and whatnot. But if you're looking for people to help you develop your lore, then you also can call on us for that as well.
Yeah, we've actually got a pretty sweet, I got to be honest with you, lore and the visual arts are my absolute downfalls, right? I'm very much technically proficient, economically proficient. Those are my strengths, but the visual arts, big thumbs down. So it's really interesting to have Hoser on here, and then with the lore stuff as well, big thumbs down. So incredible group that we've got here. It's been just an absolute pleasure chatting with you guys and getting to know you. And
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
yeah, seriously, thanks for your time, guys. Hoser, actually, I don't know if you want to remain anonymous. I totally get it. I actually don't know what your real name is.
You just
You've
told
got my
me.
website. Yeah, you've got my website there. It's at the top. It's Steven.
You're right. I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even listen.
I don't have any playable summoners available for this battle. What the fuck? Oh fuck! I'm in a gold foil only tournament. God damn it! I gotta
Get wrecked.
I rent a summoner.
Oh my gosh. Hey guys, it's been a pleasure. I'll catch you guys later.
Take it easy.
Thanks, Tyler.
Have a great night, sir. Thank you.
God damn it! I need a gold foil summoner very quickly.
You
In
have 3 minutes.
life. Rental.
I shall return. I need to go to the lavatory.
Or dragon. Grandmaster Wraith. How much is your rental? Literally renting this guy for one battle?
Yep.
I did not realize I was in a gold foil only tournament.
Well, actually, you're going to be renting them for an entire tournament.
Fair point. It's still telling me no playable summoner. Damn it.
Refresh.
I did.
Refresh again. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds to get through.
Great. Grandmaster Wraith is life, right?
Yeah.
Fuck. Create team. But I have one.
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
Ugh. That's annoying. I just spend 10 DEC for nothing. I guess I'm gonna forfeit this battle. Oh well. Kind of annoying to enter a tournament and to only then find out that it's gold foil.
Yeah, although to be fair, that information was given before you even clicked on the tournament.
I don't see where. Oh, it was probably an icon, wasn't it?
Yep.
Oh.
If you go to the events page right now,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see the 5th one down, Poseidar Wild Silver GF Invitational.
I'm in the Durostrix Modern Bronze
So
Gold.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
look on.
God damn it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it says GF Invitational in the thing, and then also the Gold Cards Only logo right there.
Yeah, that's my bad. Next battle. Will I have a gold foil summoner that they will accept? Yes, I do. Thaddeus Brood or Pyre. Does he prefer being called Pyre or Pyre?
Nobody knows.
Hmm.
Or at least I don't.
Ugh, I just had a clusterfuck. We were doing our pack break with Nova Pangea, and in the last round, I sent the wrong shit to the wrong people.
Huh.
And now I've been spending my time getting it back.
Should I upgrade my microphone?
No.
Okay, good. You just saved me $500. Thank you.
I mean, unless you really want to.
Well, I don't need to.
No.
I was going to say, didn't you just replace your mic?
The cable.
Oh, yeah, okay.
How do you tell in Magic if a card is regular or extended art?
Whether the art is regular or extended.
I don't know what that means. Like, I'm looking at the card and I can't figure it out.
Does the art cover the entire surface of the card with the
Oh,
exception
that's
of
the
border?
difference.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Literally
So
extended the art.
So it's the same as full art. Okay.
Well,
You constantly
yes and no.
fascinate me, Kevin, with these questions.
An extended art doesn't necessarily need to be a full art.
No.
So, like, look here at this Merfolk Trickster on my screen.
Oh, wait. Coming back to the stream. Yep.
Okay, so an extended art could be a full art where the card does not have a frame, it's just got art all the way around it. Or it could be an extension to the sides, so it comes out of the frame, but you still have a frame. Or it could be extended where sometimes the art will kind of pop above or the frame where the name is, or on the type bar.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So full art necessitates full art, but extended art is basically anything where the art is outside of just that little box.
Oh. Fair
Actually,
enough.
Here, I can do this. Let's go to just vid. Okay. Full art. Extended art.
Extended wax
Thank you so much for the raid. Oh. I see. Okay, that makes sense.
I've got more in here. I'm just digging through to find them. And then here...
I can shout out Peter Potts. Yeah. Shout out to Big Styles Relax. Thank you so much for the raid.
And then this is actually an extension that was done. This is an altar. The card was painted. It is not a full art card. It is a regular art card. But he then went ahead and painted over the frame.
Who did that?
A gentleman by the name of Sam Kukor. I used to be pretty big in the Magic Altars community, and that's one that I actually commissioned. That set of lands is called Pain Lands. You'll remember you played a couple of them. They're the ones that you either pay 2 life or they come out tapped. And I was working on getting the entire set of them, because there are 10 of them. One of each in that same style. And then he lost interest in painting. So I got 3 of them. I got the most important 3 for the colors that I play.
I opened 1 pack of the Zendikar Rising, and I pulled a Valakut Awakening, which is apparently worth $4.
Yep, Valakut is a hell of a mountain. That is not the good Valakut, because there is one that is just ridiculous. It's called Valakut Molten Pinnacle or something like that. And that card's a fucking just destruction.
Tell us about these people who rated us. It's Bixtalgia. The best fucking game on fucking whack. I'm not familiar. The side scroller, jumper, awesome shit. I hate platformers. I die in them all the time. I think that's the point. I have no sense of timing. It's just a
Designed to extend out your gameplay time.
174. Rare. Value is $4.22. Also, Rick, is it normal that in opening the box, all the gold foil cards, not the gold foils, the foils were like bent?
Kind of. It is a known problem with Magic, particularly with their foils curling.
No.
It's magnetism.
Really?
Magnetism is the enemy. I don't know, I'm just talking shit.
Why does it happen, Rick?
Shitty products produced by shitty companies.
And I presume they won't do anything about it?
Cards that were manufactured by the lowest bidder.
Hasbro.
And they will not replace them, will they?
Oh, fuck no.
You should do what I did to a friend of mine once. Or maybe I should save this for our podcast one day, but I'm going to tell the story again here and then there later. I was bored at work one day because I'd finished all my work with my friend. So we went down to the convenience store and bought a pack of playing cards.
Mm-hmm.
We just started playing like blackjack, poker, whatever it was we were playing. But at one point, I shuffled the deck, then removed the Queen of Hearts.
Okay.
And then I said, oh, I haven't seen the Queen of Hearts in any of our hands or when we've been doing this. I wonder if it's missing. We should check. So we went through the deck and checked, and obviously we couldn't find it because the Queen of Hearts was in my pocket. And then I'm like, dude, you got gypped. The Queen of Hearts isn't in the deck. You should write like an angry email to the company that manufactures these. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to. And I got him all fired up to write this like really angry email about how he was a dying cancer patient. He bought this as like the last opportunity to play card games with his like grandchildren. And he was sitting there at his hospital bed, writing what could quite possibly be his last bit of correspondence while he still drew breath. And, you know, it was really elaborate and like deeply
Manipulative.
moving and all that sort of thing. And then the moment after he hit send, I pulled the card out of my pocket and showed him, and the look on his face was fucking fantastic.
I bet.
We never got an email back.
Of course. It's not like that Jimmy Carr bit where with what's his name? The scientist who was in the wheelchair.
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking, yeah. Did you ever hear that one?
No.
Oh, he sent him like a fake letter that he had a child, or he was a child with the same condition, and blah blah blah. And then Stephen Hawking sent back a dictated, signed reply, and a balloon ride.
I don't get the significance of the balloon ride, but go on.
It was like, I went recently, the letter says something like, I recently went on a balloon ride. I found it quite a bit of fun. I think you might find it fun too. I've set one up. Please contact such and such at such and such, and he will bring you up in the balloon.
That's cool as shit. Way to go, Stephen Hawking.
Yeah. R.I.P.
His voice lives on.
Mm-hmm.
And Intel's bottom line just got fatter because they don't have to give him a computer every 3 years.
I was so stoked to get both of your cups today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with them. The quality
You'll have to dual wield, because then not dual wielding would be indicating favoritism.
I know. I would never want to do that.
It's okay. We all know you're his favorite.
Which is your favorite child and all that bullshit.
If you don't have a favorite child, you do not have 2 or more kids.
Yeah, no, I believe that.
Like I said to a random stranger at a wedding once, as an only child, you get to be the thing that your parents are most proud of and disappointed in at the same time.
That is also true.
Yep.
Or you can tell your parents,
Kevin?
Although
I have a bunch of half siblings that I've never met. Well, sort of never met.
That's not necessarily true, though, because
you could just be the disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. I came up like after I depped in and whatnot. I got my dad a proud parent of a U.S. Marine sticker, like a bumper sticker, and I gave it to him. And like a week later, I was like, "You haven't put the sticker on your car," and he was like, "I'll put it on when it's true." And I figured that was because I wasn't actually gone yet. I was still a high school student. Like I committed to join, but I had not gone to boot camp. So I figured, okay, he meant that like he'll put it on when I'm a Marine, when I, get out of boot camp and have earned the title. But when I got out of boot camp, it wasn't on the car. When I got back from Iraq, it wasn't on the car. When I got out of the Corps, it wasn't on the car. So I guess that it wasn't the U.S. Marine that he took issue with. It was the Proud.
Does he still have the sticker? Can you put it on his gravestone one day?
There is no gravestone, and I have no idea where the sticker might be.
Fair enough.
Is it possible he just didn't like bumper stickers?
So my wife has never met my mother because my mother wanted me to marry a good Greek Orthodox girl, and I did not do that. And I said to Sean one Father's Day, when it was near the time where we'd first met, I'll take you to go meet my dad instead. But I'd never told her that my dad was dead. So I just took her to the graveyard and took her to where my dad's grave was. I'm like, yeah, there's my dad.
You told me this before. It's kind of fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Objectively.
It's just who I am. I am just incapable of not trying to make every situation humorous.
What, like, the perfect ending to that story would have been to, like, recreate, it would have been your grandfather. And she would have had to have been American. So none of this really works. But if you guys would have fucked over, like, the gravestone, I'm not saying that you didn't. You probably did. It would perfectly recreate Hollywood Forever Cemetery Sings. which is a great song.
You sir need to not be allowed in public.
The lyrics are Hollywood Forever Cemetery sings. I just love this. Jesus Christ, girl, I laid up for hours in a daze, retracing the expanse of your American back with Adderall and weed in my veins. You came, I think, because the marble made my cheeks look pink, but I'm unsure of so many things. Oh, someone's got to help me dig. Someone's got to help me dig. We should let this dead guy sleep. Pretty sure that song is about having sex on his grandfather's grave. Just saying.
Or you could take it a step further and recreate that Avenged Sevenfold song.
How'd that one go?
'Cause I really always knew that my little crime would be cold. That's why I brought a heater for your thighs. And I know it's not your fault. Now.
It's a beautiful song.
So the fucking the soundboard buttons, I got a copyright strike for Everybody Dance Now.
What?
I didn't get it, not a strike, but my video is not playable in certain countries.
Wow.
Yeah. So needless to say, that one has been deleted from the favorites.
Yeah. There's your next copyright strike.
No, I hit that one on the that other day as well, and I didn't get one. So.
No, well, there you go.
What?
What?
Surprise, motherfucker. Surprise, motherfucker.
How are the foils characterized in the sets in Magic the Gathering?
What do you mean?
Because I'm looking through like the tcgplayer.com list to get the card numbers and whatnot, and there's like no independent number for the foils.
No, there's no independent number for the foils.
Oh, so they just get the regular card number and the regular value?
Any version of the card from the same set is going to have the same number.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what it all comes down to. Like,
yeah.
Since
but if it's
since the game is printed in like 30 some languages, like what everything comes down to as far as identifying the card is the card number and the set.
Okay.
And
a lot of these
why you can have stuff like altered cards that don't really look even anything like the original card. And it can still be playable.
In some context.
Yeah. Like,
what if the card is completely and totally defaced?
The official ruling on like alters is in any competitive event is that it is always up to head judge's discretion. So
unless the head judge is a cunt.
At any time, for any reason, you can be told, no, that card is not playable. If it is not a, bog standard out of the pack. Even if there's significant damage to the card and it's not altered at all.
Oh, wow.
But in general, as long as, like, the guidelines state, as long as it cannot be told from other cards in your deck when your deck is together.
Yeah.
Then, and as long as it can still be recognized in play.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to cover the name, the mana cost, and that's really it. The name and the mana cost. You can actually even cover the set number. But Yeah, name and mana cost typically have to stay. If those are gone, then 99% of the time, you're not going to be allowed to play it. But 99% of the time, as long as name and mana cost are intact, even if the art is completely changed, you're still going to be fine.
Assuming you haven't like done like a fucking naked dude with a swastika on his dick or something.
Nah, that's just instant win.
Actually, even that would be completely separate. Like, that would not fall under alter rules. That would fall under offensive rules.
Oh, there are offensive rules?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure on that part of things. But yeah, like especially with it being a family-friendly game.
Oh, it's meant to be a family-friendly game?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you have like 13-year-olds on the Pro Tour. I don't think currently, but it's happened.
How do they
Okay.
afford that?
There is I think there was a 6-year-old girl who actually won a spot in one of the, it wasn't World Championship, but it was like one of the tournaments that feeds into the World Championship.
Oh, nice. I will
Yeah.
be back in about 5 to 10 minutes. I need to put the dog out and have a piss and make some coffee.
I might be gone by the time you get back, but that is okay.
You know, 'cause if you
were
are,
never here to begin with.
And man, I have been having a hell of a time trying to get fucking Night Cafe to cooperate today and give me something I can actually use. I finally got a post up, though.
I am still going away at my day job because tomorrow I have my specialist appointment. I will not be working, and then Friday is my day off, so I will also not be working. So I'm trying to get as much of this done before I turn off my work computer.
Are you good for Splinterlands TV in the morning?
Yeah, I should be. I should be back from everything
Okay.
by then. If I'm not, I'll send you a message.
Yeah.
If they're running late.
I figured if you were going to need me, then you probably would have already said something. But
Yeah,
just
I
in
mean,
case,
the
I wanted to
appointment-
let you know that if you need anything, I'm available.
The appointment's at 3 p.m. It's probably a 25-minute drive from my place. I'm pretty sure he's going to finish at like 5 at the latest, even if he's running late. So plenty of time to get home.
Gotcha.
But when I actually have the wisdom teeth ripped out, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a week there where I'm going to need some help.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say probably. At least a day or two where you're just not going to want to talk.
I could just play charades the whole stream. Just write on a whiteboard and hold it up to the camera.
That would be a very bad game of charades, sir. All right, I want this giveaway to end so I can get my land. I want my SPS drops.
Have you surveyed your plot, or did you receive it at all? Or
No, I don't have it yet. They won't go out until the 16th.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah,
I'm waiting.
I sort of just skim read the requirements for it.
I'm a little bit upset at Xbot, though. We came to our agreements regarding the SPS, and I changed the settings on the bot so that my hard limit was 38 and my soft limit was 42, so that it would not be playing and would fucking be, regenerating energy all day today. And on my stream, I look and I see I'm at 0 fucking energy.
Fun.
shit burned it all down. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I'll change my parameters probably during my stream tomorrow evening. This is just such tedious dragging and dropping. Imagine building a PowerPoint presentation, but every thing on the Power presentation hooks up to a database and tells you data-y things. That's what I'm doing right now, basically. And I fucking hate PowerPoint. Okay.
Really, nothing new in 2 days. Let's fix that. Oh wait, there's not nothing new in 2 days. There's just nothing new visible in 2 days.
Yeah, I haven't looked. I'll be right back.
Bro, come on. Go down here.
Welcome back.
I'm not back. I'm gonna get the dog. She didn't follow me upstairs. Come on. I'm pretty.
Well, welcome back, ish.
Thank you. Are you guys still alive?
Yeah.
Close
Hollow
we go.
stepped away for a second. I'm reading your Novo post.
Come on, girl.
Oh, bro.
What?
You just did the your thing.
What do you mean?
There you can log in with UR Wax Wallet.
Alright, I'll be back.
I am back.
Welcome back. He is not.
That's okay.
He was and then left again.
I needed to go take a massive dump, but it was quite enjoyable.
Good.
If you don't shoot, you die.
True.
Words to live by. But looking at this work is nauseating.
This one. Beautiful. Put your lights on.
What's that?
Oh, so this is not him that wrote it. Okay. Got it.
Now I'm back.
Welcome back.
What did I do with whatchamacallit? I had done something with a your.
Never mind. I thought that you had wrote this article that you tagged me in.
No, it's that guy, Steven or
Michael David.
that guy. Oh man, I feel like so overwhelmed and so unproductive.
Hey Google, kitchen lights
I'm
on.
feeling so overwhelmed, but so impossibly also overwhelmed.
I feel empty inside.
Yeah, that's status quo.
Hey Google, stop the music. Hey Google,
I'm like eating for the first time today. I'm starting to get like shaky.
Do what now?
I'm eating for the first time today.
Oh. Yeah, I just had some blueberries.
Yummy. I'm having a cheap ass bologna and Kraft single sandwich. What do you want, Rogue? Do you want food? Oh my god, you don't get.
I always want food.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Especially your.
I am also the hunger. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call it and go get some foods.
That's not a terrible idea. C4DO.
So on that note, thank you so very much for hanging out and watching, y'all. As always, I've been Rick. You've been on the mountain. It has been a wonderful time. Thank you to Hollow, to Kevin, and to Tyler for joining us tonight. Definitely better discussion even than normal, I feel. And pretty productive stream. Pretty happy with things overall. And
Yeah.
looking forward to definitely diving in and checking out this free to play to earn. What did y'all feel like? Were your questions sufficiently answered regarding that model?
I would have appreciated more succinct answers.
I feel like I feel like there's a lot of obfuscation. I mean, I'm not saying it was purposeful. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't entirely. No, I was not convinced. If that's the question.
Fair. Do you intend to check it out?
Yeah, I check everything out.
Yeah, that's true for you, especially.
But I mean, honestly, like, it doesn't make sense to me. For a lot of reasons, but like the invocation of these economic theories seem not fully coherent. I guess.
Yeah, I kind of am left with some confusions as well myself.
I wouldn't say I'm confused. I'm I think he's trying to do something good, and I think he has a good grasp of some theoretical stuff. But I don't think it adds up. That doesn't mean the project's not going to work. It just means that the theoretical justification of it is, for me, especially with the economic rationality part, not established. So I would say.
Gotcha. Alrighty, well, yeah, we will definitely be receiving some more information as time goes on, I'm sure, and as things get developed. So definitely keep in touch for more. And in the meanwhile, y'all have a magnificent night, and we'll be back on in about 20 hours with Ben, hopefully. And we'll be continuing on our World Building Wednesday progress. And in the meanwhile, keep kicking ass, because you are fucking awesome.